civilians of Gaza City specifically to evacuate southwards on Friday, which is today. I mean, it's an extraordinary demand. I mean, I'm just failing to see how it's in any way possible to move 1 million people south in that period of time with bombardment ongoing and a lot of the roads and infrastructure damaged.
Clearly, it's not going to be easy. The United Nations, as we just said, has said that it is impossible without devastating humanitarian consequences. But clearly what Israel wants to do is to minimize civilian casualties from any expected bombing or shelling or even ground incursion, which is likely to come, if it does, from the north. Now, we don't know for sure that it's going to happen. We expect it to happen, and we obviously don't know precisely where or when Israel would go in. But by clearing that northern part of the Gaza Strip, if it's able to do so, and if the civilian Palestinian population pays heed to that warning, this would obviously make the job that much easier, both from a military perspective and also, of course, in the, if you like, information war in terms of the optics, by minimizing civilian casualties. But no doubt scenes of, hundreds of thousands potentially of Palestinians moving south with, all their worldly possessions, to get out of harm's way is not going to be a particularly good look from Israel's perspective either, but it feels that this is something that it has to do, and given the gravity of the situation and the brutality of Hamas's attack on Israel in the early hours of Saturday morning, I think this time round, certainly compared with previous wars with Hamas and militants in the Gaza Strip, Israel is less concerned about the optics of what it is doing and very much more focused on the military operation and, of course, freeing those up to 150 hostages that Hamas took from Israel inside the Gaza Strip. Michael?
Could be some dark days ahead. Elliot Dotkin in London, thanks so much. Appreciate it. Now, with Israel facing growing criticism for an apparent intelligence failure before the Hamas attack, the Israeli military says it will investigate the group's use of a half-dozen training camps in Gaza after locations were reported by CNN. According to our reporting, at least 6 of the sites were within 2 kilometers of the most heavily patrolled section of the border with Israel. Clarissa Ward with details.
Propaganda videos put out by Hamas reveal chilling details about the years of preparations that went into Saturday's bloody attacks right under Israel's nose. Analyzing metadata from the videos, a CNN investigation can reveal the presence of at least 6 training sites inside Gaza, one just 720 meters from the most heavily fortified and patrolled part of Israel's border. In that camp, Hamas recreated an Israeli compound with elements of the nearby border crossing, including an insignia of the Erez battalion. The videos show they even practiced taking prisoners and zip-tying their hands at the camp. Satellite imagery indicates the camp was constructed within the last year and a half. At 2 other locations in the southern part of Gaza, Hamas trained for their audacious paraglider assault, rehearsing takeoffs and landings. At all 6 sites, 2 years of satellite imagery reviewed by CNN shows no indication of offensive Israeli military action. The imagery instead shows that in the last 2 years, some camps even expanded into surrounding farmland, and that there was activity in the last several months at the camps. The stunning revelations raise questions as to how Hamas was able to train so openly, so close to the border for so long, and why Israeli officials were unable to pick up on and prevent the October 7th attack. Clarissa Ward, CNN.
Quick break here on the program. When we come back, CNN visits the front line in southern Israel as tens of thousands of troops prepare for the next phase of the campaign against Hamas.
Skating for over 45 years has taken a toll on my body. I take Cunol turmeric because it helps with healthy joints and inflammation support. Cunol, the brand I trust. Introducing Cunol Joint Health with turmeric, type 2 collagen, and more.
As a cardiologist, when I put my patients on a statin to reduce cholesterol, I also also tell them it can deplete their CoQ10 levels. I recommend taking Cunol CoQ10. Cunol has 3 times better absorption than regular CoQ10. Cunol, the brand I trust.
Why is just a starting line? For the true self blooms only when we find our purpose, what makes us tick, below the surface. Our reason why is united, undivided, seeking understanding. My why is diversity and unity, a safe space in my community. It's a million faces in a mirror, and everyone belongs. Find your why for a better us.
You need to get your windshield fixed? SafeLight makes it easy. You can schedule in just a few clicks, and we'll come to you with a replacement you can trust. It's great. Get service on your time. Schedule now.
SafeLight Repair, SafeLight Replace.
For 40 years, I've been burying my emotions and all the trauma of just so many things that I had seen that I couldn't unsee.
I was taking 16 pills a day, had nearly disconnected myself from my family.
All I wanted was just to go back in bed.
Post-traumatic stress disorder, I wouldn't wish it on anybody.
I applied for my own service dog because the medication and the talk therapy just weren't enough.
I was grasping desperately for independence and hope. I found it with a tail and a cold nose.
I knew that my life was about to change.
I call him my battle buddy, because every time we're out in the public, he has my back.
I'm responsible for him, but I feel just as much like he's responsible for me.
Every time those demons start talking, he knows, and he's right there at my side. Mustang truly did save my life.
Need the portable blender we can barely keep in stock? BlendJet 2 gives you ice-crushing, big blender power on the go. So you can blend up a mouth-watering smoothie, protein shake, or latte, wherever you are. Recharge quickly with any USB port. Best of all, it even cleans itself. Just blend water with a drop of soap. What are you waiting for? Order yours now from blendjet.com before they sell out again.
Question: how's your money management game? I tried spreadsheets, post-it notes, and mental math, but could never keep up with everything. That's why I started Rocket Money, an app to lower bills, find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, and bring your entire financial picture into focus. Download Rocket Money today.
I just found the biggest weight loss hack for y'all. The truth is there is no quick fix, but there is a more effective way to lose weight, and it isn't what you think. It's actually Noom. It's 2 times more effective than doing it on your own. Get started right now by taking the Noom quiz.
Welcome back. The Israel Defense Forces are urging all civilians in northern Gaza, including the heavily populated Gaza City, to evacuate southwards for their own safety. The IDF says they will announce when it's safe for civilians to return. Israel's military alleges, quote, the Hamas terrorists are hiding in Gaza City inside tunnels, underneath houses and inside buildings populated with innocent Gazan civilians, unquote. The United Nations warns a large evacuation of what would be more than 1 million people on short notice like that could have devastating humanitarian consequences. Gaza, of course, is already gripped by a crisis that is worsening by the hour. Relief groups say there's an urgent need for a humanitarian corridor so that aid can reach civilians. Israel's siege of Gaza has cut off access to food, water, electricity and medical supplies. Hospitals are overwhelmed. The Palestinian Ministry of Health says Israeli airstrikes have killed at least 1,500 people and wounded more than 6,000. Israel has been pounding the enclave with airstrikes and shelling in response to last weekend's Hamas terror attack, which Israel says killed more than 1,200 people. The White House, meanwhile, says it has no plans to put U.S. troops on the ground in the region ahead of an expected military incursion into Gaza. CNN's Nick Robertson reports on preparations.
Israel's newly emerging front line in the war with Hamas. Heavy howitzers just dug in, firing on the terror group a few miles away in Gaza. Part of Israel's massive military build-up since Hamas's attacks Saturday. Many of the 300,000 reservists called up already deployed ahead of a highly anticipated ground offensive into Gaza. These are exactly the same gun positions the Israeli Defense Forces used in their last major confrontation with Hamas back in 2021. The question now, will this confrontation be different? Will Israel actually be able to crush Hamas, as the Prime Minister says he wants to do? Military offensives haven't beaten them before and won't be easy now. The Palestinian death toll and unintended consequence of Israeli shelling and missile strikes is climbing. Thursday, staunch ally the US cautioning care.
The Prime Minister and I discussed how Israel does this matters. We democracies distinguish ourselves from terrorists by striving for a different standard, even when it's difficult.
And it will be difficult. Israel is still reeling from the deadliest, most barbaric attack on its citizens since the state was founded. Anger at Hamas is high, so too pressure on the Prime Minister to act decisively. He's calling for more international support as he plans his offensive.
Hamas should be treated exactly the way ISIS was treated. They should be spit out from the community of nations. No leader should meet them. No country should harbor them. And those that do should be sanctioned.
In the meantime, Hamas is still getting into Israel. This gun battle with them late Wednesday.
There were multiple incursions by Hamas terrorists yesterday. I drove right through Sder Road during the time when 3 terrorists were out, again, looking for civilians to kill.
The tempo of fire here, far higher than in 2021. A drumbeat that seems to signal a ground offensive, all but inevitable. Even so, its outcome, far from certain. Nick Robertson, CNN, Sderot, Israel.
All right, I want to bring in Gideon Levy now, a journalist and opinion writer with Haaretz in Tel Aviv. Good to see you. Tragically, this is another bloody chapter, isn't it? Albeit bloodier than others, in a cycle of, wash, rinse, repeat, what some in Israel used to call mowing the lawn. What is the risk once the dust settles of a return to the status quo ante? If fundamental issues are not addressed, won't it just happen again?
Unfortunately, Israel doesn't learn anything from the past because we have been there so many times and committed the same attacks on Gaza, killed so many people of Gaza, and a few months later, 1 year later, we were back in square one. We have to realize that this problem, and there is a huge problem, this problem will never be solved only by force. But now I think we are facing a new situation. It's not, it seems, as it seems now, it's not going to be like in the past. Israel, at least according to the plans, at least according to the warnings and the threats, is going to commit a massive crime of war. If we are going to transfer now 1 million people within 24 hours, this will be unforgivable. That's a tragedy that nobody can know how it will end. Look, on Saturday there was a barbarian attack on Israel. But this does not mean that Israel can go crazy now and do whatever it wants. And if we are really going to face this, I'm very scared.
Yeah, I mean, Israel strikes in Gaza are massive, and Hamas ostensibly at least is the target. Hamas is, but Hamas isn't Gaza writ large in terms of the 2.2 million people who live there. Do you think that fact gets lost in what we're seeing?
Yes, it does, because by the end of the day, Hamas should be punished and should be smashed. But you can't do it at any price. There are limits. There are legal limits, there are moral limits. You can't do it at any price. Unless you decide that you clean all Gaza and expel all the 2 million people of Gaza, or God forbid you exterminated them. We are not there and we should get there. We should do whatever is possible, legal and moral, but not beyond this, because I really feel we are on the edge of a catastrophe.
With Pi Prime, you can make pizza here, back here, and even way up here. You can make them fancy, like this, or keep it simple, like this. You can share with friends, or keep it all to yourself. You can be an artisan pizza pro, or maybe less so. You can do pizza your way with an oven that's simple enough to be your first and powerful enough to be your last. Pi Prime Pizza Oven by Solo Stove.
Find your someone at EliteSignals.com today.
Businesses need 5G solutions today. That's why they choose T-Mobile for Business. MLB partners with T-Mobile to not only enhance the fan experience, but to advance how the game is played. AAA relies on T-Mobile's network to stay connected nationwide so they can help get their members back on the road. And we're helping Pano AI innovate to stop the spread of wildfires. Now's the time to see what America's largest 5G network can do for your business.
Hi, I'm Stacy and I've lost 60 pounds on Golo. I decided to try Golo when I had an international flight coming up, and I realized I couldn't fly being the size that I was. My sister-in-law tried Golo and had lost 50 pounds. So I thought I'd give Golo a try. I didn't expect the results I got on Golo. I was hopeful, but I did not expect it to be like this. Golo just makes sense. This plan works.
Change your life at Golo.com. That's GOLO.com.
Is Ukraine going to win this war?
We'll bring the stories that matter to the masses.
One in 3 children is now at risk of going to school on an empty stomach.
When I'm hungry, my stomach starts to hurt a little bit. It's hard to think and concentrate. I don't have enough energy.
But there's hope. By supporting Toonies for Tummies, 100% of your donation gives hungry children in your community the chance to start their day with a much-needed nutritious meal.
When I eat breakfast, I have lots of energy. When it's gym, I can run really fast.
Donate online today.
Guys, how frustrating is it to find a great pair of jeans? Too tight here, too loose there, too long there? Standard jeans use just 2 measurements, and Tailor Custom Jeans use 7 different measurements to give you the perfect fit. Your phone can measure you right now. Download the M-Tailor app on iOS or Android. Choose from hundreds of styles. M-Tailor measures you digitally and is 20% more accurate than a professional tailor. With free shipping and a money-back guarantee, get your new favorite pair of jeans today. M-Tailor, available on the Apple App Store or Android.
Welcome back. I'm Michael Holmes. The Israeli military calling on all civilians in northern Gaza, including Gaza City, to evacuate southwards on Friday. The UN urgently seeking clarification, saying such an evacuation order simply isn't possible. It is the surest sign yet that an Israeli ground offensive may be imminent in retaliation for the Hamas massacres that killed 1,200 people. The IDF says some 300,000 Israeli troops are now massing near Gaza's border. Artillery and airstrikes against Hamas targets inside Gaza have continued almost non-stop. Palestinians say more than 1,500 people, including 500 children, have died so far in those Israeli bombardments. The UN says nearly 423,000 people have been displaced from their homes. Food, water, fuel, power, all have been cut off. All right, I want to bring back Gideon Levy, journalist with Haaretz in Tel Aviv. I'm sorry we lost audio with you earlier. I was going to quote you from a piece you did in Haaretz, and you said this: the threats of flattening Gaza prove only one thing. We haven't learned a thing. The arrogance is here to stay, even though Israel is paying a high price once again. Just briefly explain that for us.
Those lines were written before I knew how big was the massacre in the south of Israel, and still I stand behind it, because Israel should obviously protect itself. Israel has the right to retaliate, to take revenge, to smash Gaza, not Gaza, to smash Hamas. All this is legitimate. What is unacceptable is that now we will punish 2.3 million people in a way that we never punished them before. That's a crime of war. Listen, by the end of the day, in Gaza, they are before anything else human beings like you and me, and they are in terrible, terrible position now. Where will they run? Where will they find rescue? 1 million people run to the south part of Gaza? Or shall they run into the ocean? I mean, what do we think? That because we were victims of a terrible, terrible attack on Saturday, now we have the right to do whatever we want with innocent people? This is really, and above all, what will it lead? I mean, what will Israel gain out of it? And this is what I meant, that we don't learn anything.
Right.
In a few months, it will be over, Gaza will be rehabilitated, and then what? Who will replace Hamas exactly?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you this, and it obviously goes without saying that the Hamas attack was horrible, dreadful, brutal terrorism. But, some Israeli analysts say that Israel made a critical strategic mistake by pushing the Palestinian issue to the side, the core issue of the occupation and so on. Should the core Palestinian issues, the occupation issues of self-determination and so on, be part of the discussion once the dust settles? Because it hasn't been for a very long time.
I couldn't agree more. That's exactly what I meant when I spoke about the Israeli arrogance. We will make peace with all the world, including the Emirates and Saudi Arabia. We will have a prosperous country with high tech and everything. And in our backyard, there will be 5 million people living in terrible conditions under a brutal dictatorship, and this can last forever. We normalize the siege over Gaza, we normalize the occupation, but both phenomena are not normal, and both phenomena cannot last forever without paying a price. And here we are.
There have been clashes and deaths in the West Bank too, where a lot of focus has been. What are the risks of a major uprising in Jerusalem or the West Bank?
Israel is doing, or the settlers are doing anything possible to provoke it. They kill now like crazy, the settlers, but who cares now? And there is a real risk that this will explode. The problem is that in the West Bank, the Palestinians are very, very weak, very divided, and above all, without any chance to do something, because the Israeli control in the West Bank is so tied up that I don't see a major development there. The real danger is now from the north, not from the West Bank.
Yeah, from Lebanon. We're right out of time. Yeah. Gideon Levy, always a pleasure to speak with you and read your stuff in Haaretz. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Well, relief groups are calling for the protection of civilians in Gaza who continue to suffer in the bloody war between Hamas and Israel. CNN's Nada Bashir reports now, and a warning: her report does contain graphic content.
Gripped by grief and loss of unfathomable scale, Gaza's death toll and the number of civilians wounded is rising with each and every airstrike. In the El Shate refugee camp, men dig with their bare hands, desperate to rescue loved ones from beneath the rubble of what once were their homes. Saad begins to list the names of the children killed in this latest strike. Among them, his niece, she was just a few months old. Now, she is one of more than 440 children Gaza's health ministry says has been killed by Israeli airstrikes so far. Israel says it is striking Hamas targets, but authorities here say medical facilities, schools and residential areas have been impacted. Our neighbors said that the Israelis had called and told them to evacuate the area around our home, so we came to stay with relatives here in Al-Shati, Nabil says. But the next morning, when we woke up to pray at dawn, the airstrike happened. There was no warning. The densely populated Gaza Strip, which has been under an Israeli land, sea and air blockade since 2007, is home to more than 2 million people. Around 47% of them are children. So far, at least 340,000 people have been displaced within Gaza. Many are now forced to take shelter in UN-run schools like this one. But civilians here are also now facing what the Israeli government has described as a complete siege on Gaza. There's no water for us to drink, no water for us to wash ourselves with so that we can pray, Mariam says. They've bombed our schools, many people have been killed. It's not fair for children like us. Why is this happening to us? Life under a blockade is all that the children of Gaza have ever known. For some, like 13-year-old Nadine, it is hard to imagine a future beyond this relentless conflict.
The last couple of nights have been the worst couple of nights I've ever lived in my life. This is not living. This is existing. We're not planning our futures anymore. We're just trying to survive.
But survival in Gaza is becoming more and more difficult by the day. The humanitarian situation is rapidly deteriorating. And while the UN has condemned what it has described as Israel's unlawful blockade on Gaza and the indiscriminate nature of Israel's airstrikes, there is little hope that the bloodshed will end here. Nada Bashir, CNN.
Now, after Israel cut power, water, food and fuel to Gaza, Norway's foreign minister said blocking access to humanitarian aid for Gaza is, quote, unacceptable. Earlier, CNN's Anderson Cooper spoke by phone with a Norwegian Refugee Council spokesman in Gaza, and they discussed the situation on the ground.
Youssef, an Israeli official said earlier today that Gaza will not be provided with any electricity or water or fuel until Israeli hostages being held by Hamas are returned home. What's the impact so far been in Gaza?
Yeah, so far the situation in Gaza is really bad before starting this war. Add to that, after this war in Gaza, massive bombardment. Add to that, no electricity, no water, no fuel. And I think in a couple of few days we will find that all the stores in Gaza will be empty. There will never be anything for people to consume in Gaza.
Where do people get basic supplies? I mean, where are people getting food?
And for example, I have to clean my house, and I'm posted with one of my relatives every day. And every morning, I have to go to stand in line in front of a bakery almost for 2 hours just to get a box of bread. There is no enough supply for anything. Sorry. A lot of bombardment around me. Sorry. So as you hear, this is the situation. That was a bombardment. Yes, sorry.
And what about water? When you turn on taps in your home, do you get water?
There is no water in Gaza, especially even though we have other sources like municipality lines in Gaza, but there is no electricity to pump this water up to the tanks in the houses. So we collect water in cooking pots in small gallons, just trying to store water. Even it's not only for drinking water, also for hygiene.
I'm wondering what people there say about the attack that took place in Israel. Is there a lot of support for the attack that took place that you hear from people?
Honestly, all of us, there's too many people here thinking on a daily basis how to provide safety at the beginning for their children, food and other needs, their essential needs on a daily basis. With all of this bombardment over our heads, we don't have space in our head to think in anything except secure our lives. We cannot think in anything under all of this chaotic situation. Bombardment, no electricity, no water. What the world is expecting from Gazans to think about.
Are people there aware of hostages being held by Hamas?
Yeah, and the people are aware of the situation, but they are unaware of what is in the horizon. Unfortunately, we don't see any intervention from the international community to understand it. And until now, we don't see anyone who interfering from the outside world. People here living, I can't say they're living day by day. We are living here second by second. Every day, when we go to find some sleep, especially when the night came, we are praying just to see the daylight again. The situation here is unbearable. I don't think that anyone on this planet can handle the situation here for 1 hour.
If there is a ground invasion, what do you expect?
We are terrified of this, all the news talking about the ground invasion. We are completely terrified from this scenario. With all of this bombardment, add to that a ground invasion. I don't think it is going to be a horror movie. It's literally a horror here. We are seeing horror in a daily basis. Every second by second we see this bombardment around us.
Yusuf Hamash, thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, if you'd like information about how you can help humanitarian efforts in Israel and Gaza, go to cnn.com/impact. We've gathered a list there of vetted organizations responding to the crisis. An Israeli woman literally took a bullet for her son to save his life during last weekend's brutal Hamas attack. You'll hear a heartbreaking interview with her children who lost both parents in the rampage. That's when we come back.
I'm gonna walk you through everything I eat in a day. Not today, sis. Unless you plan on orbiting Earth, you don't need to eat powder for every meal. With Noom, you can still enjoy your favorite food and reach your goal weight. Get started with Noom today.
I love the Army. You just have this brotherhood that you can't find anywhere else. Since coming home from war, I've tried so many different things. I just remember thinking, like, it's over.
After being forced to medically retire, Angie battled addiction to prescription medications, eventually losing her house and marriage. Then she found Wounded Warrior Project.
And so I went online, I signed up, and I knew that Wounded Warrior Project was definitely my new community. One of the staff members, she put me in for peer mentor training. It was like for the first time someone recognized something good about me and thought that I had something to give back to someone else. I'm doing okay otherwise?
I've kind of picked up woodworking with my grandfather, so...
3D stuff. All those activities gave me a new way to live without drugs, a new way to live without feeling like I'm broken. You can live a meaningful life after traumatic experiences.
You wouldn't go into battle alone. You don't have to fight this alone. Visit woundedwarriorproject.org/notalone.
It's hard to imagine that this powerful, beautiful animal needs our help. But they are being killed for their skin and bones, and their homes are being destroyed. Tigers are at the heart of so many delicate ecosystems. When you protect a tiger, you also protect thousands of species and people that rely on the same habitat. Learn how you can make a difference.
Does someone who threatens Putin's power ever die unintentionally in Russia?
I don't think so. He just leaves all this carnage in his wake.
Do you think he cares about that?
No, he doesn't.
The Source with Caitlin Collins. Tomorrow at 9.
Hey, Emma.
We need a mattress, right?
Yeah.
I've been doing a little research.
Little?
The Sofa Classic has 2 layers of springs that contour to your body.
Nice.
It has a 3-inch Euro pillow top, Dan. And it's half the price of retail.
But I just wanted to know about dinner.
Look at this premium quality, and it's half the price of retail stores.
Funerals were held Thursday for some of the people who have been killed over the last few days. Israeli families gathering in Jerusalem's Mount Herzl Cemetery to attend the funerals of soldiers killed in the conflict with Hamas. Meanwhile, Palestinians mourning the deaths of 5 of their own who were killed by Israeli settlers and forces in the occupied West Bank. The nationalities of the victims of the Hamas attacks last weekend stretched right across the globe. They include Thailand, Brazil, Russia, the UK, Australia and Ukraine. All right, joining me now on the phone, Dr. Ghassan Abu Sitta is a British-Palestinian surgeon working inside Shifa Hospital in Gaza City. Thanks for being with us, sir. I really appreciate you making the time. It's sort of emblematic of the difficulties there that we've got you on the phone and not via video as planned. Now, earlier on Thursday, the International Committee of Red Cross said hospitals in Gaza risk turning into morgues as they lose power and supplies. What's the situation for those wounded in Gaza? Doctor, are you there? We seem to have lost the line. It's very difficult there in Gaza, obviously, with communications, electricity and so on. We were hoping to get the doctor via video, then telephone. It would seem both have failed. All right, now we are continuing to hear horrific stories about the violence that played out during the Hamas attack inside Israel last weekend. Deborah Matthias was on the phone with her father when she and her husband Shlomi were shot and killed in their home. Deborah shielded their teenage son from the gunfire with her own body, likely saving his life. The son, Rotem, was wounded in the attack. He later spoke with CNN's Poppy Harlow along with his 2 sisters. Poppy asked Rotem how his recovery is going.
I'm doing very well. I'm able to walk now. A few days ago I couldn't even stand. The bullet inside my stomach has been taken out via surgery, and I'm feeling much, much better.
We are showing, as we speak to you, these beautiful pictures of your parents, and it was so striking to hear your grandfather earlier this week describe what they did to save you, and how your mother bore the brunt of the gunfire and did what every mother would do for their child. Could you help tell us about her and your father?
Well, I can't really explain them in words, but they were the best. They did everything in their power to give us the life that they wanted us to have. They wanted us to be happy, to be whimsical. They wanted to be joyful. They wanted us to be in peace. They didn't want us to be at a situation like this, and they wanted us to live more than anything. So, as you said, yeah, mom and dad, they sacrificed their lives to save me.
Share. To you.
Yeah.
What would you like to share?
Yeah. I just want to say that we are very, very sad that our parents are gone. They were very, very brave. They were good people, and they didn't deserve anything. It was horrible. None of the people in Israel, none of the foreign citizens who were here who were taken deserve any of this. Sadly, we still haven't gotten a chance to have a funeral for our parents, and we're just still sitting and waiting to hear anything about them.
Shaked, not only did you lose your parents, but you also had to you learned that they were killed from your brother, Rotem, sending you that message. Those moments.
Yeah,
for
we
you.
both.
Go ahead.
it was very, I didn't want to believe it, as I don't think anyone would ever want to believe it. The text message, it said, Mom and Dad are dead. Mom and Dad are dead. Sorry. And that was when my service was gone and I was cut off. And I was left about 13, 14 hours in the safe room. I had no idea what happened to my parents, if they really are gone. And I didn't know if my brother was still here. And I was so worried and I was so scared. And we heard bombs everywhere, and we heard shooting, and we heard screams. And no one should ever have to go through that. Ever.
Hard to listen to, isn't it? We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, protests erupt at US college campuses over the Israel-Hamas war. We'll hear from students coming up.
Can we get real clear about life with psoriasis?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Is your treatment leaving you with uncontrolled symptoms? Like the cover-it-ups and brush-it-offs?
Enough with good enough.
Don't stay hiding or hurting. When your lotions and creams don't do enough to help treat the inflammation beneath the skin causing plaques and pain, it's time to get real about psoriasis so your dermatologist can help you get clear. Make the appointment and ask about Real Clear Skin.
Hey, human, what if you could accomplish something instead of endlessly following up? How about if you collaborated with other humans in other departments? What if making a project template was quicker than putting on work pants? What if you could keep up with projects without chasing other humans down? What if how humans work actually worked for humans? Operate at peak human. Smart cheat.
The Solo Stove Bonfire is the hottest new reason to get outside. With its signature 360 airflow design, firewood gets just the right amount of oxygen, and since it's easy to light, it gets going fast. It's America's favorite smokeless fire pit for a reason. Bonfire is made for when those good moments become lasting memories. Save $10 using promo code TV10 at solostove.com.
Wounded Warrior Project's mission is to honor and empower those who sacrifice so much for our country. Now you have the chance to take action and help put that mission in motion by signing up for the Carry Forward 5K, one of the most unique and powerful events you'll ever experience. Show your support in 3 special ways by carrying a flag, weight, or person. Don't miss your chance to put the mission in motion. Register for Carry Forward today.
Here's your parachute. Packed it myself.
Certain it's okay?
Mm-hmm.
Are you 4-imprint certain? Certainty matters, like the certainty of congratulating coworkers or saying thank you for being a customer. With promotional products from 4-imprint, our expert team is dedicated to making your satisfaction a certainty.
Packed it myself.
Land the perfect products at 4imprint.com.
4imprint, for certain.
Introducing the limited edition Disney collection from BlendJet. 9 exciting designs your whole family will adore. BlendJet 2 is portable, which means you can blend up nutritious smoothies, protein shakes, or frozen treats just about anywhere. Recharge quickly via USB-C. It even cleans itself. Order yours now from blendjet.com and bring a little Disney into your life.
If you struggle and struggle and struggle with CPAP, you should check out Inspire. No mask, no hose, just sleep. Inspire, sleep apnea innovation. Learn more and view important safety information at inspiresleep.com.
Closed captioning is brought to you by Christian Faith Publishing. Write for a higher purpose. Publish with us.
Christian Faith Publishing is an author-friendly publisher who understands that your labor is more than just a book. Call for your free author submission kit.
800-455-1827.
French police, they're using water cannon and tear gas to break up a pro-Palestinian rally in Paris on Thursday. President Emmanuel Macron has banned protests in support of the Palestinian people, saying they were, quote, likely to generate disturbances to public order. France is home to the largest Muslim and Jewish communities in Europe. In Tunisia, thousands of people filled the streets of Tunis to show their solidarity with the Palestinian people. Demonstrators also demanding that any normalization of relations with Israel be made a criminal offense. Now, here in the US, tensions rising at college campuses from Harvard to UCLA over the Israel-Hamas war. CNN's Nick Watt reports on that.
The so-called Day of Resistance on campuses across the country, called by National Students for Justice in Palestine, which hails the Hamas terror attacks as a historic win for the Palestinian resistance across land, air, and sea.
That's the justification of the murder of Jews, as we've seen throughout history, under a different name.
At San Diego State, one pro-Palestinian protester said this.
We're not for any lives lost, no matter what, Palestinian or Israeli.
We found that 57% of Jewish students in the U.S. have experienced or seen anti-Semitism. That was before this occurred. Now we're seeing the levels rise, the incidents rise, the complaints rise.
At Harvard, a statement released within hours of the attacks begins, "We, the undersigned student organizations, hold the Israeli regime entirely responsible for all unfolding violence." Some have recanted after a backlash that included a billionaire hedge fund boss asking Harvard to name members of the groups that signed, so none of us inadvertently hire them. Last night, their names and faces emblazoned on a truck in Harvard Square by a conservative organization. Such intimidation is counterproductive, said Harvard Hillel, a Jewish student group.
The conversation about what is and isn't productive discourse is something that we're seeing really taking shape.
A major UPenn benefactor has called on other alums to close the checkbooks after what he said was college leaders' apparent failure to condemn the views of some speakers at a recent Palestinian literary festival on campus. Even after the Hamas attacks, college officials have condemned anti-Semitism. Los Angeles Tuesday, a pro-Israel rally just a stone's throw from the UCLA campus. The Cultural Affairs Commission of UCLA, a student group, posted Monday, "We honor the Palestinians on the front lines, taking their land and sovereignty back." They say this is not anti-Semitism. Judaism is separate from the political movement of Zionism.
These are UCLA organizations, and they have the permission to say these things. It's absolutely absurd.
I mean, you're holding an Israeli flag. Is that something you'd be okay doing on campus?
Oftentimes on campus, I feel scared to hold a flag if I'm not with a big group. There's a lot of anti-Semitism on campus, and it's always felt at all times.
And now we're on the UCLA campus where today a large pro-Palestinian rally. Listen, the tensions are only going to heighten after what happened in the Middle East, what's going to happen in the Middle East, and also tensions, particularly on campuses, over where is that line between standing up for Palestinian human rights and glorifying murder. Nick Watt, CNN, Los Angeles.
We're still getting heartbreaking stories about the Hamas attack on Israel last weekend. A few hours ago, CNN's Wolf Blitzer spoke with Bezalel Talda, an Israeli soldier whose mother was killed in the onslaught. Wolf asked him what he felt when he realized his mother was gone.
Was a very, very, very bad feelings when we found her. Didn't believe it. I didn't think. No way I will find. This is how I will find my mom. It's crazy. It's crazy. I cannot really feel it. I'm now at war, so I don't have really time to sit and cry on my mom. So after we'll fight and win this fight on the evil force, we start cry.
Bezalel, how is your family processing this really disgusting, this horrendous attack on your mother, the loss, in what was supposed to be a celebration of life, a newborn baby?
A lot of pressure, even in the war zone. A lot of pressure. The grandkids are asking always, where's grandma? When is grandma coming? Why is the grandma not coming? They understand now already that my mom got murdered, so they ask why she got murdered. Nobody understands it. Everybody's just crying a lot.
I know you say, Bezalel, that you want to fight in Gaza in your mother's name, in your mother's memory. Do you expect you actually will be deployed there?
All of Israel is under attack. I'm fighting wherever they need me the most. For me, we don't have really difference between Hamas of Gaza and Hamas of Yehuda and Samaria or Hezbollah. Everybody tries to kill us. It doesn't, we have attacked, we have so much enemies on Israel, so little country, just, it's not even a fight between Israel and Hamas or Hezbollah, it's a fight between good and evil. And the other side don't have mercy, no mercy.
Now, amid the carnage and destruction in Gaza, a little bit of joy and happiness that only the birth of a baby can bring. Baby Abdullah, born on Thursday in the maternity ward at the hospital in Gaza City. His father is a Reuters journalist who's been covering the Israeli airstrikes, the aftermaths and funerals in the enclave, and now he's a father of 5. Abdullah was not the only newborn in the ward on Thursday. A baby girl born to a woman who says she had to risk her life getting to the hospital to give birth. Thanks for spending part of your day with me. I'm Michael Holmes. Do stick around. Our breaking news coverage continues with my colleague Kim Brunhuber after the break.
This morning, smile with the rising sun. Three little birds fly my doorstep, singing
Dear humans, this is an adoption campaign, but it's not for me, or Mr. Buttons, or Frank over there. It's for you, humans. This is a call to humans to adopt our movement, to adopt our cause.
This isn't just about saving one of us.
It's about saving all of us.
Thousands of lives, every single day.
It's about support for every one of us four, and sometimes not four-legged best friends waiting to meet a best friend of our own. With Best Friends Animal Society leading the charge. Shelter by shelter, city by city. We can save thousands of pets each day. Join us. Together we can save them all.
Julian's about to learn that free food is a personal eating trigger.
No, it isn't. Yes, it is.
And that's just a bit of psychology Julian learned from Noom Wave. Sign up now at Noom.com.
For 40 years, I'd been burying my emotions and all the trauma.
I was grasping desperately for independence and hope. I found it with a tail and a cold nose.
I call him my battle buddy, because every time we're out in the public, he has my back.
Every time those demons start talking, he knows, and he's right there at my side.
Mustang truly did save my life.
Does someone who threatens Putin's power ever die unintentionally in Russia?
I don't think so. He just leaves all this carnage in his wake.
You think he cares about that?
No, he doesn't.
The Source with Caitlin Collins. Tomorrow at 9.
Stop! I'm a good zombie!
This October,
Trick or treat!
spirits come home to rest all month long.
This place is really haunted. What a weird mystery.
With Hollow Scream on Disney Plus.
We're gonna scare you. Boo.
Home is where the hunt is.
It's time.
Guys, how frustrating is it to find a great pair of jeans? Too tight here, too loose there, too long there? Standard jeans use just 2 measurements, and Tailor Custom Jeans use 7 different measurements to give you the perfect fit. Your phone can measure you right now. Download the M-Tailor app on iOS or Android. Choose from hundreds of styles. M-Tailor measures you digitally and is 20% more accurate than a professional tailor. With free shipping and a money-back guarantee, get your new favorite pair of jeans today. M-Tailor, available on the Apple App Store or Android.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Hello and welcome to all of you watching us here in the United States, Canada, and all around the world as we continue our breaking news coverage of Israel at war. I'm Kim Brunhuber. We begin with a major development. Israel is calling for all civilians in Gaza City to evacuate their homes and move to the south in the day ahead. The UN spokesperson calls the request impossible, saying it could turn an already tragic situation into a calamity. Now, it's likely the clearest sign yet of Israeli plans to intensify its military operations in Gaza following Hamas's attack on Israel, which killed at least 1,300 people. Tens of thousands of Israeli troops, tanks, and other military vehicles are now gathering along the Gaza border. Meanwhile, there's enormous and worsening suffering for the civilians in Gaza. The Palestinian Health Ministry says there are more than 1,500 people who've been killed by Israeli airstrikes and shelling. And without power and water, the health system is on the brink of collapse. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is in Jordan right now, with meetings scheduled in Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and the United Arab Emirates. In Israel on Thursday, he met with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
We encountered a nation knit together by grief, but also a nation united in resolve. The United States shares that resolve. We stand shoulder to shoulder with the people of Israel.
And joining me now from Tel Aviv is Israel Defense Forces spokesperson Major Doron Spielman. Thank you so much for being here with us. So I just want to start with this. There's so much uncertainty around the order to leave. So can you clarify, is it just Gaza City itself or all of northern Gaza as the UN has said?
So our announcement refers specifically to Gaza City. We've let the residents know that we are having, a lot has been moving forward in Gaza City, and there will be continued in the future, perhaps targeted attacks on Gaza City, and therefore we're doing our best to minimize civilian casualties on their side. We wish that they had done the same thing on our side and warned our own civilians to move out of the way. But we're different from Hamas, and this is just one more example.
All right, so in the areas and cities around Gaza City, they can stay put, but it's just the residents of Gaza City that you're asking to leave. Specify why you're asking them to leave exactly, and does this signal a ground invasion is imminent?
Gaza City houses many of the top Hamas terrorists. A lot of the infrastructure that's been carried out by the Nukba, which is Hamas's targeted forces. It's their commando forces, which carried out a lot of the brutal massacres on Israeli soil. And the IDF is committed to civilian life as much as possible. And so we want to move them safely out of the way. We have Israeli civilians moving out of the way on the Israeli side. And this is a call on the Gazan civilians to please move out of the way on their side so that we can, as much as possible, minimize civilian casualties.
Well, with the airstrikes and so on still going on, how will the civilians know that it's safe to actually move to leave?
So we've notified them that this is the time to leave. Again, if we understand it's going to take time, this is an announcement to get ready and to begin moving towards the border. We're taking this into account. It's obvious. This is why we are saying this. We've given them a window in which we've encouraged them to do this, and we very much call on all the Gazan civilians to do this because we want to minimize as much civilian life. This is, of course, as opposed to Hamas, which has put their civilians directly in the line of fire, as they've done throughout past years and certainly as they're doing now. It's one more example of why Hamas and their abilities to inflict damage not only affect Israeli civilians, affect their own civilians.
To the logistics here, will they be, safe corridors? I mean, how is this supposed to happen exactly?
So Gaza City is very close to Wadi Gaza, which is the area. It's a very short distance, and we understand we've taken that distance into account, the area into account, and it's a clear landmark. A river is something, even if you don't have a map, it bisects Gaza, they will know how to reach it. Again, Gazan civilians know where this river is, and it's a clear point. We're doing as much as possible to try to move the civilians out of the way. This is really an attempt by us to try to minimize civilian casualties.
Even so, I mean, the UN says moving, 1 million people, or I guess a bit fewer, but if you're just asking for the residents of Gaza City, but still a huge number of people, it can't be done without devastating consequences. There's been so much infrastructure destroyed, roads damaged, many people have no means of transportation. CNN talked to the Palestinian Red Crescent. They said children will be lost, the elderly and the sick will be left behind.
When Hamas launched their devastating attack on the civilians of Israel, I mean, we're still burying our dead. We have lines of people that are still bringing DNA evidence, trying to sort through the bodies. It's an elaborate, combined effort of the Israeli army, the government, hospitals, coronaries to try to bury them. At the same time, we are moving our own population out of the way. This devastation is a result of Hamas, which again goes back to the idea. Hamas is a cult of death. It is the death of the innocent Israelis. It is now a cult that doesn't at all care about if their own civilians die, which is why the IDF is committed to going in and defeating Hamas's infrastructure. And this is necessary. We're doing our best to move civilians out of the way so that we can move forward with this mission.
If they don't leave, what happens to them?
I don't want to think about what will happen to civilians if they don't leave. We're doing our best to ask them to leave. What I can tell you is that Hamas, anyone that was involved in this attack against Israeli civilians, that massacred our civilians, we are going to ensure that they have no capacity to do this again in the future. And we call on them, and again, the international community is watching this. This lies at Hamas's doorstep. Let your civilians move out of the way. Stop being such cowards. You cross the border and you killed innocent Israeli civilians. You've now gone back to Gaza. You're hiding in tunnels. You've sent your wives and your children go to sleep upstairs knowing that they are putting them directly in the line of Israeli fire. It's despicable and grotesque. We have opened up this area, this time frame. Let's make sure that these civilians move out of the way.
Last question for you. When will these civilians be able to come back?
We've announced to them that when we finish our operations, we will send a very clear message that it's time for them to come back to their homes once we've managed to eliminate the threat from Hamas.
I mean, when you finish the operations, I mean, is this, could it be weeks, months? How long do you think?
This is going to be a decision by the upper echelons of the defense community. We have left many options in order to do this. We hope that it's going to be done as thoroughly as possible because Hamas, as we can see, Hamas is not only a source of evil for Israel, it is no question a source of evil for the people of Gaza. We will do what it takes to try to eliminate this threat, both for us and both for them, and then these people can hopefully come back home safely.
All right, really appreciate your time, IDF spokesperson Major Doron Spielman in Tel Aviv. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, I want to go live now to London, where journalist Elliot Gotkin is following developments. So, Elliot, we just heard from the IDF there a few more details about exactly who they're asking to move and how they're predicting that they will do it. Just what do you make of what he said?
Yeah, really, Kim, just fleshing out more about that warning that the IDF gave to the United Nations just before 5 p.m. Eastern Time, so about midnight local time, clarifying that it's just specifically Gaza City that people of the Palestinians in Gaza need to evacuate. and that they need to move south of this Wadi Gaza in order to get out of harm's way. Now, he also said, in response to your questions, Kim, that Israel will factor that in to its airstrikes and other strikes on targets in the Gaza Strip, that it is continuing. It says it is simply trying to target Hamas infrastructure and also the specific commandos, the Hamas members who were responsible for this attack on Israel, which has now left more than 1,300 people dead inside of Israel since that attack in the early hours of Saturday morning. Now, you asked about how they would get there, and he ultimately said, look, the buck stops with Hamas. This was a war that Hamas started, and if there are civilian casualties, and Israel will do its very best to minimize civilian casualties, then that will be a consequence of Hamas's actions. But really just specifying where people need to evacuate from. We don't know when they will be able to go back. Clearly, the IDF is not going to give us any specifics regarding tactics or whether this is specifically designed to pave the way for an expected ground incursion. But what the IDF at least is saying is that this call for an evacuation of Palestinians from Gaza City is designed to minimize civilian casualties. Their war is not with the people of Gaza, it is simply with Hamas, and any civilian casualties that result from that, says the IDF, is going to be laid at the door of Hamas. Kim?
And Elliot, you've been monitoring the response to this call for the people of Gaza City to move. What have other groups like the UN and Hamas been saying?
So the United Nations' initial response was that this is impossible to do without devastating humanitarian consequences. Hamas, for its part, or the Gaza Media Office, which of course is part of the government in Gaza, which is controlled by Hamas, they have said to the Palestinians inside the Gaza Strip, don't fall for it. Don't pay any attention to what it has described as psychological warfare from the part of the Israelis. I think probably the people in the Gaza Strip will, to play it safe, err on the side of paying attention to to this warning from the Israelis rather than Hamas's request to not be swayed by it. And Israel, for its part, has described the UN's response to its early warning as shameful. The UN Secretary General, we know, Antonio Guterres, has asked for clarification on what is going on or what Israel is demanding in terms of the evacuation. But the situation right now, and we're it's 9 o'clock in the morning in Israel, so there's another 15 hours until this 24-hour deadline, if you like, runs out, during which Israel wants as many civilians as possible to evacuate from Gaza City and to move south to get out of harm's way so that it can strike the targets it wants to strike, the targets of Hamas infrastructure and Hamas militants that it wants to strike as a result, in retaliation for this attack launched by Hamas in the early hours of Saturday morning. Kim?
That clock is ticking on that deadline. Elliot Gotkin in London, thanks so much. Well, the White House says it has no plans to put U.S. troops on the ground in Israel ahead of an expected military incursion into Gaza. CNN's Nick Robertson reports on the preparations.
Israel's newly emerging front line in the war with Hamas. Heavy howitzers just dug in, firing on the terror group a few miles away in Gaza. Part of Israel's massive military build-up since Hamas's attacks Saturday. Many of the 300,000 reservists called up already deployed ahead of a highly anticipated ground offensive into Gaza. These are exactly the same gun positions the Israeli Defense Forces used in their last major confrontation with Hamas back in 2021. The question now, will this confrontation be different? Will Israel actually be able to crush Hamas, as the Prime Minister says he wants to do? Military offensives haven't beaten them before and won't be easy now. The Palestinian death toll and unintended consequence of Israeli shelling and missile strikes is climbing. Thursday, staunch ally the US cautioning care.
The Prime Minister and I discussed how Israel does this matters. We democracies distinguish ourselves from terrorists by striving for a different standard, even when it's difficult.
And it will be difficult. Israel is still reeling from the deadliest, most barbaric attack on its citizens since the state was founded. Anger at Hamas is high, so too pressure on the Prime Minister to act decisively. He's calling for more international support as he plans his offensive.
Hamas should be treated exactly the way ISIS was treated. They should be spit out from the community of nations. No leader should meet them. No country should harbor them. And those that do should be sanctioned.
In the meantime, Hamas is still getting into Israel. This gun battle with them late Wednesday.
There were multiple incursions by Hamas terrorists yesterday. I drove right through their road during the time when 3 terrorists were out, again, looking for civilians to kill.
The tempo of fire here, far higher than in 2021. A drumbeat that seems to signal a ground offensive, all but inevitable. Even so, its outcome, far from certain. Nick Robertson, CNN, Sderot, Israel.
All right, still ahead, the top U.S. diplomat on a Middle East mission, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates, all on his itinerary. Plus, in all the conflicts between Israel and Hamas over the years, there's been, and still is, one constant. Civilians are always on the losing end of the violence. The war's toll on Gaza's children. That's next.
This is how Tosin lost 33 pounds on Noom weight.
I'm Tosin.
Noom gave her a psychological approach to weight loss.
Noom has taught me how you think about food has such a huge impact on your relationship with it.
Visit Noom.com and start your trial today.
Why is just a starting line? For the true self blooms only when we find our purpose. What makes us tick? Below the surface. My why is diversity and unity, a safe space in my community. Living with sincerity, giving every day my everything. With my why, I stand strong, seen and supported all along. For some, their why is a summer under stars, memories and moments, connections near and far. Why is the before work hustle and after school home, a section of my block, a corner to call my own. Our reason why is united, undivided, seeking understanding. Here, a handshake is a promise. All our hearts are dancing. Laughing is our song. It's kinship, friendship, tide rising with the ship. It's a million faces in a mirror, and everyone belongs. Find your why for a better us.
I had an important job. And it wasn't just a job, it was keeping my brothers and sisters safe. And coming back, it felt like kind of thrown away. It's like you're useless. You know, we don't really have a need for you now because you can't really do anything for us. That's the way I felt. If it hadn't been for Wounded Warrior Project, I honestly don't know if I would be here. It was the camaraderie that I saw it had. It was like I got my family back again because we all had like some sort of injury or illness that we didn't have to talk about, but we all felt the connection, you know, like that brother and sisterhood.
My name is Seema. I used to be afraid of the waves. During big storms, waves flood my house because it floats on top of the water. My school floats on the water too. Save the Children helped us build it. Teacher picks me and my friends up in the boat and we go to school. I wear a life jacket because I can't swim. In the boat with teacher, we're not afraid. We sing and dance. At school, we read, we learn the alphabet, we count, and we sing songs. I love my teacher. She makes me smart. I study every day because I want to be a teacher like her.
Hi, I'm
Peyton Manning, and I'm partnering with the American Red Cross this year to tackle blood shortages. Giving blood's important because every 2 seconds someone actually needs blood, and unfortunately only like 3% of the U.S. population donates. So we have to step up to give and to make sure there's plenty of blood available for those in need. Visit redcrossblood.org to get in the game and make an appointment to give.
America's top diplomat is in Jordan at the hour for talks with King Abdullah. Antony Blinken is trying to arrange a humanitarian corridor to get food and medical supplies into Gaza and to get civilians out. Blinken will also meet with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas before heading to Qatar and Saudi Arabia. Now, in Israel on Thursday, he met with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to reaffirm U.S. support, but he also urged Israel to be cautious in its approach to Gaza. Blinken spoke with families of Americans who were killed or taken hostage in Saturday's Hamas terror attacks, and he also addressed reports of atrocities. Here he is.
It's hard to find the right words. A baby, an infant, riddled with bullets. Soldiers beheaded. Young people burned alive in their cars. This is a moment where everyone needs to make clear that there is revulsion, disgust, and a determination not to allow this to go forward.
CNN asked the Israel Defense Forces why the government decided to release images of slain children. Here's a spokesperson for the IDF.
It takes a few moments to settle your optics again after seeing that. I think it is crucial because we've been in similar situations before, never like this, but similar situations where we're attacked by terrorists, atrocities are done, never at this level, but atrocities are done, rockets are fired, and then we start defending ourselves, and then the world turns against us and tells us, stop doing that, we don't like it. I think that it is as hard and as gruesome and as vile it is to see these pictures, and they're so disturbing, and you cannot unsee them. And I think it's the first time in the history of Israel that our official institutions, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs did it first, and now the Prime Minister's office, we in the IDF spokesperson unit have shared pictures as well. It is the first time that we do it, because I think we feel that if we don't, we will be failing the people who were murdered, and the fact that people in the world won't understand what this is all about. They may be confused in thinking that this is just another round between Israel and the Palestinians or Gaza, and that it's related to politics and what have you not. That's not the case. This is a totally, fundamentally different situation, and if we don't show it to the world, maybe people won't understand it and know it.
Relief groups are calling for the protection of civilians in Gaza who continue to suffer in the bloody war between Hamas and Israel. CNN's Nada Bashir reports, and we just want to warn you, her report contains graphic content.
Gripped by grief and loss of unfathomable scale, Gaza's death toll and the number of civilians wounded is rising with each and every airstrike. In the El Shate refugee camp, men dig with their bare hands, desperate to rescue loved ones from beneath the rubble of what once were their homes. Saad begins to list the names of the children killed in this latest strike. Among them, his niece. She was just a few months old. Now, she is one of more than 440 children Gaza's health ministry says has been killed by Israeli airstrikes so far. Israel says it is striking Hamas targets, but authorities here say medical facilities, schools, and residential areas have been impacted. Our neighbors said that the Israelis had called and told them to evacuate the area around our home, so we came to stay with relatives here in El Shate. Nabil says. But the next morning, when we woke up to pray at dawn, the airstrike happened. There was no warning. The densely populated Gaza Strip, which has been under an Israeli land, sea and air blockade since 2007, is home to more than 2 million people. Around 47% of them are children. So far, at least 340,000 people have been displaced within Gaza. Many are now forced to take shelter in UN-run schools like this one. But civilians here are also now facing what the Israeli government has described as a complete siege on Gaza. There's no water for us to drink, no water for us to wash ourselves with so that we can pray, Maram says. They've bombed our schools, many people have been killed. It's not fair for children like us. Why is this happening to us? Life under a blockade is all that the children of Gaza have ever known. For some, like 13-year-old Nadine, it is hard to imagine a future beyond this relentless conflict.
The last couple of nights have been the worst couple of nights I've ever lived in my life. This is not living. This is existing. We're not planning our futures anymore. We're just trying to survive.
But survival in Gaza is becoming more and more difficult by the day. The humanitarian situation is rapidly deteriorating. And while the UN has condemned what it has described as Israel's unlawful blockade on Gaza and the indiscriminate nature of Israel's airstrikes, there is little hope that the bloodshed will end here. Nada Bashir, CNN.
Now, with so many of you watching, feeling compelled to help with humanitarian relief efforts, CNN is compiling resources, and you can head to cnn.com/impact, and there you can find a list of vetted organizations that are responding on the ground. That's cnn.com/impact. And coming up next hour, I'll be speaking with Dr. Justin Dangley, a physician with Doctors Without Borders in Gaza, and what the proposed evacuation order by Israel may mean in the hours ahead. Now, critics want to know, why was Israel so woefully unprepared for Saturday's violence? Now we're learning that Hamas practiced these attacks for years within walking distance of the Israeli border. Well, details next. Plus, while there have been no credible threats of violence connected to the Hamas attacks in the U.S., officials aren't taking chances. We'll have a report on security measures that's coming up after the break. Stay with us.
ADT Self-Setup, featuring Google Nest products. Now you can easily install your system that's backed by ADT's 24/7 monitoring with no long-term contracts. So you have a home with no worries. Brought to you by ADT.
Introducing Senecot Laxative Gummies.
I'm the easy way to relieve occasional constipation overnight.
Just take before bed, and the next morning,
it's showtime! And I've got mixed berry flavor.
Senecot Laxative Gummies.
Easy relief, the gummy way.
At Granger, we're for the ones who pay attention to every little detail. We're the same way, offering access to product experts to help you quickly and easily find what you need. Call, click Granger.com, or just stop by. Granger, for the ones who get it done.
This Halloween, trick or treat yourself to the BlendJet 2 portable blender. It's to die for. BlendJet 2 gives you monstrous power for a delicious smoothie, shake, or frap. Anytime, anywhere. Cleaning BlendJet 2 is scary easy. Just blend water with a drop of soap. Recharge quickly with any USB port. Boogie on over to blendjet.com and order yours today.
Hey, human, what if you could accomplish something instead of endlessly following up? How about if you collaborated with other humans in other departments? What if making a project template was quicker than putting on work pants? What if you could keep up with projects without chasing other humans down? What if how humans work actually worked for humans? Operate at peak human. Smart cheat.
Is Ukraine going to win this war?
They bring the stories that matter to the masses.
HPV is a virus that typically has no signs and symptoms, and it's spread via sexual activity. Unfortunately, condoms aren't giving us full protection from HPV. There's still those other body parts that are touching. HPV can stay asleep in a person's body for up to 40 years before it wakes up, and it's linked to a long list of cancers.
The HPV vaccine is a cancer prevention tool. We know it is very safe, it is very effective, and it's giving you long-term protection against cancer.
I was shocked that I had cancer because there isn't cancer in my family.
I didn't know you could die from skin cancer. And then I go in 2 weeks later to get my diagnosis of melanoma.
Melanoma is the deadliest form of skin cancer.
Protect yourself by being sun safe. Check yourself with monthly skin exams. Inform yourself. Skin cancer is real. Learn more at saveyourskin.ca.
The Israeli military is calling on all civilians in Gaza City to evacuate southwards on Friday. The UN is urgently seeking clarification, saying such an evacuation order isn't possible, and Hamas is telling everyone to stay in their homes. That's the clearest sign yet of Israeli plans to intensify its military operations in Gaza in retaliation for the Hamas massacres that killed more than 1,300 people. The IDF says some 300,000 Israeli troops are now massing near Gaza's border. Artillery and airstrikes against Hamas targets inside Gaza continued almost non-stop. Palestinians say more than 1,500 people, including 500 children, have died so far in the Israeli bombardments. The UN says nearly 423,000 people have already been displaced from their homes, and food, water, fuel, power, all have been cut off. Israel's military says it'll investigate information from a CNN report revealing that Hamas spent 2 years preparing for Saturday's massive attacks on Israel. Analysis shows much of the practice work was done inside Gaza, and some of it around a mile or less than 2 kilometers from the most heavily patrolled border with Israel. Our Clarissa Ward has the details.
Propaganda videos put out by Hamas reveal chilling details about the years of preparations that went into Saturday's bloody attacks right under Israel's nose. Analyzing metadata from the videos, a CNN investigation can reveal the presence of at least 6 training sites inside Gaza, one just 720 meters from the most heavily fortified and patrolled part of Israel's border. In that camp, Hamas recreated an Israeli compound with elements of the nearby border crossing, including an insignia of the Erez battalion. The videos show they even practiced taking prisoners and zip-tying their hands at the camp. Satellite imagery indicates the camp was constructed within the last year and a half. At 2 other locations in the southern part of Gaza, Hamas trained for their audacious paraglider assault, rehearsing takeoffs and landings. At all 6 sites, 2 years of satellite imagery reviewed by CNN shows no indication of offensive Israeli military action. The imagery instead shows that in the last 2 years, some camps even expanded into surrounding farmland, and that there was activity in the last several months at the camps. The stunning revelations raise questions as to how Hamas was able to train so openly, so close to the border for so long, and why Israeli officials were unable to pick up on and prevent the October 7th attack. Clarissa Ward, CNN.
Now, amid the Hamas attacks in Israel and calls for protests in the U.S. on Friday, Capitol Hill police say there have been no specific threats towards Congress, but they're enhancing security anyway. On Thursday, President Biden met with law enforcement officials to discuss security, and the Homeland Security Department is advising Americans to be vigilant. CNN's Brian Todd has more on increased security across the U.S.
Stepped-up patrols, police posted outside synagogues, the New York Police Department ramping up security and calling for all of its roughly 36,000 officers to report in uniform, according to an internal department memo obtained by CNN. This comes after former Hamas leader Khaled Mashal called on the Muslim world to, quote, show anger on Friday.
You've got police covering over 400 locations in New York City. That's iconic locations, symbolic locations, Jewish religious locations, and of course the city's Arab communities and Muslim communities for their safety.
CNN's John Miller reports there's no specific call for violence beyond a general call to express anger. But he says law enforcement and intelligence officials across the country are telling him about chat rooms and other online forums.
They're seeing 1,000% uptick in the kind of generic threats against Jewish communities and targets.
A suspect in Fresno, California is now in custody after this surveillance video captured a man throwing a rock at the window of a bakery this week. The business is not Jewish affiliated, but a note was left saying all Jewish businesses will be targeted. A Jewish temple in Fresno also had its glass doors broken this week.
We know it's out there. For the most part, the Fresno community is awesome, but there are a few hateful people who decide to make it hard for everyone.
President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris met Thursday with law enforcement and national security officials, going over steps to protect the homeland in the wake of the Hamas attacks in Israel. The FBI and the Department of Homeland Security have just issued a public service announcement warning of the potential for attacks in the U.S., saying that in the past, conflicts between Israel and Hamas provoked the targeting of individuals and institutions associated with the Jewish and Muslim faiths. That same PSA says there's no specific intelligence reflecting any plans to attack inside the U.S. stemming from the current war in Israel. But experts say angry lone wolves could move on their own.
Finding that single individual who will go very quickly from being radicalized and angry to actually trying to mobilize and conduct an attack, it's next to impossible to try to stop that in advance.
Still, law enforcement agencies will have officers at places of worship, police providing safe corridors and doing perimeter searches at some institutions.
There's a lot you will see out there on the streets, and there's a lot you won't in terms of cameras, intelligence investigations into extremist forums.
But a key question raised by former top U.S. counterterrorism official Jabed Ali is, given the amount of resources, how long do you maintain that level of security? He says no law enforcement agency can protect all of those facilities for weeks on end. And this conflict in Israel could, of course, play out for much longer than that. Brian Todd, CNN, Washington.
All right, we want to get to some other important news here in the U.S. House Republicans are expected to meet behind closed doors Friday morning, hoping to find some way to agree on a new leader. House Majority Leader Steve Scalise pulled out of the running for Speaker of the House of Representatives late Thursday after it became clear his fractured party wouldn't come together to support him. Manu Raju has details from Capitol Hill.
Republican turmoil only deepening in the aftermath of the leadership crisis that we have seen play out over the past week, and that we saw play out just on Thursday evening, in which Steve Scalise abruptly announced he would no longer seek the speakership amid the fact that he simply did not have the votes on the House floor to be elected. This, of course, coming in the aftermath of last week's ouster of Kevin McCarthy, the Speaker of the House, who was the first Speaker ever to be forced out by his own colleagues on a vote on the House floor. Remember, to win the speakership, you could only afford to lose 4 Republican votes on a party line vote. That means Steve Scalise had roughly about a dozen, maybe up to 2 dozen Republicans who were ultimately saying that they were not going to support him, despite his efforts all day long to try to flip them, try to convince them that he was their candidate and to assuage their concerns. None of that worked. And members all day long were fuming about the stalemate, about how it makes their parties look, and raising fresh concerns that all of this could cost them their narrow majority in 2024.
Does it put a swing district like yours at risk?
Yeah, it does. These guys want to be in the minority. That's exactly. I think they would prefer that because they can just vote no and yell and scream all the time. And but governing, you gotta work together.
It's a tough scenario, but there are people in there that are honorably trying to get to the right place, and then there are people in there, as you know, that like to go on the TV and are not necessarily negotiating for anything other than TV time.
How does that make you guys look?
Makes us look like a bunch of idiots.
Our Republicans will meet again on Friday morning at 10 a.m. to try to figure out their way forward. Jim Jordan, the House Judiciary Committee chairman, is expected to announce his bid for the speakership. Other candidates may yet emerge, but Jordan is no sure bet. In fact, a number of Republicans are telling you that they are not on board with Jordan's more conservative politics. So can he get 217 votes? Will another speaker candidate emerge, or will this crisis persist? And if it does, then that essentially means No legislation can be acted upon, whether it's about Israel aid, avoiding a government shutdown, or trying to provide aid to Ukraine. None of that can happen unless there is a speaker elected. There's some talk about elevating the interim speaker, Patrick McHenry, giving him new power. But at the moment, that is not happening, as Republicans are still grappling with their way forward in this historic stalemate on Capitol Hill. Manu Raji, CNN, Capitol Hill.
U.S. House Republicans and Democrats were able to come together for one activity on Thursday, a vigil supporting Israel.
As a member of Congress, as a Jew, as a Zionist, as a human being, this moment of us coming together, whether it's the disorganization and disunity in Israel prior to this point, or here in our country, when Israel and the United States need one another, it's moments like this where we step up. And it is actions that matter so much more. It is actions that matter so much more than words. In times of trouble.
The bipartisan candlelight vigil took place on the steps of the Capitol building. The White House confirmed Thursday that the number of Americans killed in last weekend's Hamas attacks now stand at 27. All right, still to come, protests erupt at U.S. college campuses over the Israel-Hamas war. We'll hear from students next. Stay with us.
Struggling with the highs and lows of bipolar 1? Ask about Vraylar. Because you are greater than your bipolar 1. And you can help take control of your symptoms with Vraylar. Some medicines only treat the lows or highs. Vraylar treats depressive, acute manic, and mixed episodes of bipolar 1 in adults. Proven full-spectrum relief for all bipolar 1 symptoms. And in Vraylar clinical studies, most saw no substantial impact on weight. Elderly dementia patients have increased risk of death or stroke. Call your doctor about unusual changes in behavior or suicidal thoughts. Antidepressants can increase these in children and young adults. Report fever, stiff muscles or confusion, which may mean a life-threatening reaction, or uncontrollable muscle movements, which may be permanent. High blood sugar, which can lead to coma or death, weight gain, and high cholesterol may occur. Movement dysfunction and restlessness are common side effects. Sleepiness and stomach issues are also common. Side effects may not appear for several weeks. Ask about Vraylar and learn how AbbVie could help you save.
I wonder if I could buy and book online at discounttire.com and get the same advice I get from the experts at the store. You can. What Who's in it?
Get your best match in 1 minute or less with Treadwell.
It'll be an opportunity to travel the world and shoot all these amazing scenes.
We can shoot the whole thing in Turkey. You see, Turkey has it all.
These are the faces. Face the reality.
Try to bring it every single night.
Face the opponent.
Put a hand in his face.
And become the face of the game.
Game faces are on.
Hold it!
Imagine a world with no drama.
I haven't sat Johnny's card yet.
Ordering promotional products guaranteed to create memorable moments is an easy mission at 4imprint.com.
4imprint, for certain.
Guys, how frustrating is it to find a great pair of jeans? Too tight here, too loose there, too long there? Standard jeans use just 2 measurements. And Tailor Custom Jeans use 7 different measurements to give you the perfect fit. Your phone can measure you right now. Download the Tailor app on iOS or Android. Choose from hundreds of styles. Tailor measures you digitally and is 20% more accurate than a professional tailor. With free shipping and a money-back guarantee, get your new favorite pair of jeans today. Tailor, available on the Apple App Store or Android.
Sports fans from everywhere have won over $600 million playing on Underdog Fantasy. Join the underdogs and find fans just like you. Just go to underdogfantasy.com to get started.
Here in the U.S., tensions are rising at college campuses from Harvard to UCLA over the Israel-Hamas war. CNN's Nick Watt reports.
The so-called Day of Resistance on campuses across the country, called by
National Students for Justice in Palestine, which hails the Hamas terror attacks as a historic win for the Palestinian resistance across land, air, and sea.
That's the justification of the murder of Jews, as we've seen throughout history, under a different name.
At San Diego State, one pro-Palestinian protester said this.
We're not for any lives lost, no matter what, Palestinian or Israeli.
We found that 57% of Jewish students in the U.S. have experienced or seen anti-Semitism. That was before this occurred. Now we're seeing the levels rise, the incidents rise, the complaints rise.
At Harvard, a statement released within hours of the attacks begins, "We, the undersigned student organizations, hold the Israeli regime entirely responsible for all unfolding violence." Some have recanted after a backlash that included a billionaire hedge fund boss asking Harvard to name members of the groups that signed, so none of us inadvertently hire them. Last night, their names and faces emblazoned on a truck in Harvard Square by a conservative organization. Such intimidation is counterproductive, said Harvard Hillel, a Jewish student group.
The conversation about what is and isn't productive discourse is something that we're seeing really taking shape.
A major UPenn benefactor has called on other alums to close the checkbooks after what he said was college leaders' apparent failure to condemn the views of some speakers at a recent Palestinian literary festival on campus. Even after the Hamas attacks, college officials have condemned anti-Semitism. Los Angeles Tuesday, a pro-Israel rally just a stone's throw from the UCLA campus. The Cultural Affairs Commission of UCLA, a student group, posted Monday, "We honor the Palestinians on the front lines, taking their land and sovereignty back." They say this is not anti-Semitism. Judaism is separate from the political movement of Zionism.
These are UCLA organizations, and they have the permission to say these things. It's absolutely absurd.
I mean, you're holding an Israeli flag. Is that something you'd be okay doing on campus?
Oftentimes on campus, I feel scared to hold a flag if I'm not with a big group. There's a lot of anti-Semitism on campus, and it's always felt at all times.
And now we're on the UCLA campus where today a large pro-Palestinian rally. Listen, the tensions are only going to heighten after what happened in the Middle East, what's going to happen in the Middle East, and also tensions, particularly on campuses, over where is that line between standing up for Palestinian human rights and glorifying murder. Nick Watt, CNN, Los Angeles.
Protesters across Europe have been taking to the streets voicing their opposition to war and showing support for both Israeli and Palestinian people. You can see there are thousands gathered in London on Thursday for a vigil honoring and supporting Israel, whereas a crowd in Brussels, Belgium, marched in support of the Palestinian people. Pro-Palestinian rallies triggered a strong police response in Berlin, where such demonstrations have been temporarily banned. Protests in South Africa turned violent as Palestinian and Israeli supporters scuffled in Johannesburg. In Paris, things were quiet for those rallying in support of Israel. Pro-Palestinian demonstrators were met with tear gas and water cannons after President Emmanuel Macron issued a ban on such protests. Some images from the last few days have been disturbing and hard to watch, like this viral video that claims to show Israel attacking Gaza. It's actually a celebration in Algeria. Well, the special report on social media misinformation, that's straight ahead. Please stay with us.
Guys, how frustrating is it to find a great pair of jeans? They never have the right color, style, or size. Too tight here, too loose there, too long here. I have the perfect solution for you. M. Taylor Custom Jeans. Stop spending hours trying stuff on. Download the free M. Taylor app on iOS or Android. Standard jeans use just 2 measurements. M. Taylor Custom Jeans use 7 different measurements to give you the perfect fit. Design your own custom jeans for just $79. Choose from hundreds of styles. Deliver delivered right to your door. Download the M-Tailor app. M-Tailor measures you digitally and is 20% more accurate than a professional tailor, all from home.
It was so easy to be measured by M-Tailor. It took less than 30 seconds. This is definitely my favorite pair of jeans. They fit perfectly.
To get custom jeans, shirts, or suits, your phone can measure you right now with free shipping and a money-back guarantee at just $79. Get your new favorite pair of jeans today. M-Tailor, available now on the Apple App Store, Android, and mtailor.com.
Businesses need 5G solutions today. That's why they choose T-Mobile for Business. MLB partners with T-Mobile to not only enhance the fan experience, but to advance how the game is played. AAA relies on T-Mobile's network to stay connected nationwide so they can help get their members back on the road. And we're helping Pano AI innovate to stop the spread of wildfires. Now's the time to see what America's largest 5G network can do for your business.
I used to leave urine when I coughed, laughed, or exercised. I couldn't even enjoy playing with my kids.
I leaked too. I just assumed it was normal.
Then we learned about Bulkamid, an FDA-approved non-drug solution for our condition.
It really works, and it lasts for years. It's been the best thing we've done for our families.
Visit findyourrelief.com to find an expert physician near you. Ask if Bulkamid is right for you and discuss potential risks. Results and experiences may vary. Move beyond the leaks.
Were you exposed to hazardous materials while serving in the military and have an illness or condition as a result?
If so, you may be eligible for VA benefits and services.
Whether you need health care or want to file a disability compensation claim related to military exposures, VA is here to help.
Visit va.gov/military-exposures to learn more and apply today.
Our future will demand more energy than ever, and with innovations in natural gas and oil, America can deliver. But Washington keeps pushing extreme policies that limit America's energy. Their plan? Restrict oil and natural gas produced in America. Government mandates for how we fuel our cars and cook our food. A future where energy could be less reliable and more expensive. Tell Washington, stop the extreme policies and let American energy deliver.
I served in the Army for 11 years and deployed overseas 3 times. I understand the price of freedom, and I'm aware of the threats we face from our foreign adversaries. Countries like China, Russia, and Iran believe in oppression and censorship, and they want to dominate and use tomorrow's technologies against America. If you value free expression and an open internet, join me in sending a message to Congress. It's time to strengthen, not weaken, American technology.
Closed captioning brought to you by Feel Away Optimum. Enhanced calming for cats.
If your cat sprays outside the litter box, fights with other cats, or scratches the furniture, they could be telling you they're stressed. To help them feel more calm, try Feel Away Optimum.
The European Commission has launched an investigation into Elon Musk's social media site X over disinformation about the Israel-Hamas war. The probe into the platform, formerly known as Twitter, covers its policies and practices on illegal content, how it handles complaints, and risk assessment. X claims it has removed, quote, hundreds of Hamas-affiliated accounts. CNN's Tony O'Sullivan has more now on some viral images that claim to be about the war are actually fake.
One video shows a rocket purportedly fired by Hamas. Another video claims to show Israeli jets bombing Gaza, but neither is real. This video is actually footage from a video game called Arma 3, and this is actually video of soccer celebrations in Algeria. It's all part of a tidal wave of viral mis- and disinformation circulating around the Israel-Hamas conflict. Adi Cohn works with Mamitica, an online threat intelligence service. He's been monitoring misinformation like this, a fake BBC News report that falsely claimed Ukraine had provided weapons to Hamas.
This is relatively sophisticated stuff. I mean, it's got even the same kind of graphics set as the BBC News normally would have.
Right, and I think what happened over recent years, that it becomes very easy, affordable to mimic those graphics, visualization.
In response to the false news report, the BBC told CNN in a statement, "In a world of increasing disinformation, we urge everyone to ensure they are getting news from a trusted source." Just hours after the Hamas attack began on Saturday, this began circulating on social media. A fake White House memo falsely claiming the US was immediately sending billions of dollars in new aid to Israel.
This is like some more old school disinformation. A fake White House document circulated pretty widely online.
Right. I do want to point out, though, it is an old school tactic that we've seen, for multiple years by now. But with the current tools, you can also create it very quickly and make it more believable.
There's new information every second, every minute, every hour, and so there's a lot of room for error as things develop on the ground.
Graham Brookie tracks disinformation with the Atlantic Council's Digital Forensic Research Lab.
And this conflict is hyper-connected. Israel is a very, very connected country, and so we're seeing an enormous amount of misleading content coming out of this conflict as the world's eyes are watching it.
Twitter, now known as X, is a major source of misinformation, in part because of the changes Elon Musk made to the platform since he took it over, including laying off key employees. On Thursday, the European Commission announced it was opening an investigation into disinformation on X about the Israel-Hamas conflict.
Another component of it, I would say, is that because several platforms have scaled back on moderation, it's much easier to spread rumors, unsubstantiated rumors, false information very quick.
But this isn't just an information war. It's a real war. And false information can be fatal.
And that disinformation is extraordinarily harmful, including putting folks' lives at risk.
Now, X, formerly Twitter, says that it is moving resources around at the company after, of course, it had all those layoffs under Musk to try and address some of these issues. But look, this is not a problem that is exclusive to X. It is happening on other platforms as well, but right now it's quite pronounced. On X, you can see false videos, misleading videos, getting hundreds of thousands, millions of views on the platform before anything is really done about them. And of course, the real tragedy is here, there is no need to post these fake videos and images. We have seen the tragic footage, the real footage from Israel and Gaza, and of course it is upsetting enough. These fake videos and images really just adding to the chaos, confusion and concern. Tony O'Sullivan, CNN, New York.
So before we go, with so many of you watching feeling compelled to help with humanitarian relief efforts, CNN is compiling resources, so you can head to cnn.com/impact, and there you can find a list of vetted organizations that are responding on the ground right now. That's cnn.com/impact. All right, that wraps this hour of CNN Newsroom. I'm Kim Brunhoover. I'll be back in just a moment with more of our breaking news coverage of Israel and Europe.
For free trials all the time. What I don't do is cancel them. Rocket Money uncovers hidden subscriptions and notifies you when a charge is upcoming. From there, you decide if you want that service. And if not, cancel it right from the app with one tap. Download Rocket Money today.
Need the portable blender we can barely keep in stock? BlendJet 2 gives you ice-crushing, big blender power on the go. So you can blend up a mouth-watering smoothie, protein shake, or latte, wherever you are. Recharge quickly with any USB port. Best of all, it even cleans itself. Just blend water with a drop of soap. What are you waiting for? Order yours now from blendjet.com before they sell out again.
I'm Sholay, and I lost 75 pounds with Golo. I went from a size 20 to a size 6. Before Golo, nothing seemed to work. I was exercising for over an hour every day. It was really discouraging. But Golo is so easy, the weight just falls off.
When it comes to making plans, you are the best. The same way you plan each detail for those moments, start planning to protect you and your loved ones from a natural disaster. Protecting your family is the best plan you can make.
Do you struggle to fall asleep and stay asleep? Cunol Sleep Support has a unique blend of 5 key ingredients that can help you fall asleep faster, stay asleep longer, so you can wake up refreshed. Cunol, the brand I trust.
Tired of sciatic nerve pain radiating down your leg and lower back? Get relief, finally, with MagnaLife Leg and Back Pain Relief Cream. Fast acting, and yes, it really works. So get living.
Available at your local retailer.
Does someone who threatens Putin's power ever die unintentionally in Russia?
I don't think so. He just leaves all this carnage in his wake.
Do you think he cares about that?
No, he doesn't.
The Source with Caitlin Collins. Tomorrow at 9.
No one plans to accidentally fall overboard. But if you do, having your life jacket within reach might not be close enough. Want to see what happens next? Scan the QR code or come to enjoyboating.ca and you can decide what happens to our struggling boater. When within reach might not be close enough. A life jacket left on board won't keep you floating.
1 in 3 children is now at risk of going to school on an empty stomach.
When I'm hungry, my stomach starts to hurt a little bit. It's hard to think and concentrate. I don't have enough energy.
But there's hope. By supporting Toonies for Tummies, 100% of your donation gives hungry children in your community the chance to start their day with a much-needed nutritious meal.
When I eat breakfast, I have lots of energy. When it's gym, I can run really fast.
Donate online today.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Hello and welcome to all of you watching us here in the United States, Canada, and all around the world. I'm Kim Brunhuber with CNN's breaking news coverage of Israel at war. The United Nations calls it an impossible task, likely to turn a tragic situation into a calamity. Israel is telling all civilians in Gaza City to leave their homes for their own safety and protection and head southwards today. The Israeli military says Hamas's terrorists are hiding in tunnels underneath houses using people as human shields. Now, it's the clearest signal yet that Israel plans to intensify its military operations in Gaza after the Hamas terror attacks over the weekend that left 1,300 people dead. Tens of thousands of Israeli troops, tanks, and other military vehicles are now gathering along the Gaza border. Meanwhile, there's enormous and worsening suffering for the civilians in Gaza. The Palestinian Health Ministry says there are more than 1,500 people killed by Israeli airstrikes and shelling. And without power and water, the healthcare system is on the brink of collapse. I spoke earlier with Israel Defense Forces spokesperson Major Doron Spielman, and I asked him about that call for civilians to leave Gaza City. Here he is.
We've let the residents know that we are having, a lot has been moving forward in Gaza City, and there will be continued in the future, perhaps targeted attacks on Gaza City, and therefore we're doing our best to minimize civilian casualties on their side. We wish that they had done the same thing on our side and warned our own civilians to move out of the way, but we're different from Hamas, and this is just one more example.
All right, so in the areas and cities around Gaza City, they can stay put, but it's just the residents of Gaza City that you're asking to leave. Specify why you're asking them to leave exactly, and does this signal a ground invasion is imminent?
Gaza City houses many of the top Hamas terrorists. A lot of the infrastructure that's been carried out by the Nukba, which is Hamas's targeted forces. It's their commando forces, which carried out a lot of the brutal massacres on Israeli soil. And the IDF is committed to civilian life as much as possible. And so we want to move them safely out of the way. We have Israeli civilians moving out of the way on the Israeli side. And this is a call on the Gazan civilians to please move out of the way on their side so that we can, as much as possible, minimize civilian casualties.
Well, with airstrikes and so on still going on, how will the civilians know that it's safe to actually move, to leave?
So we've notified them that this is the time to leave. Again, if We understand it's going to take time. This is an announcement to get ready and to begin moving towards the border. We're taking this into account. It's obvious. This is why we are saying this. We've given them a window in which we've encouraged them to do this, and we very much call on all the Gazan civilians to do this because we want to minimize as much civilian life. This is, of course, as opposed to Hamas, which has put their civilians directly in the line of fire, as they've done throughout past years, and certainly as they're doing now. It's one more example of why Hamas and their abilities to inflict damage not only affect Israeli civilians, affect their own civilians.
To the logistics here, will they be safe corridors? I mean, how is this supposed to happen exactly?
So Gaza City is very close to Wadi Gaza, which is the area. It's a very short distance, and we understand we've taken that distance into account, the area into account, and it's a clear landmark. A river is something, even if you don't have a map, it bisects Gaza. They will know how to reach it. Again, Gazan civilians know where this river is, and it's a clear point. We're doing as much as possible to try to move the civilians out of the way. This is really an attempt by us to try to minimize civilian casualties.
All right, let's go live now to London, where journalist Elliot Gotkin is following developments. And Elliot, so let's start what we've heard there. I got a bit of clarification around the logistics and the motive around the Israeli military call to evacuate Gaza City. What do you make of it?
Well, Kim, initially the statement from the warning from the IDF, which was given to the United Nations at about 5 p.m. Eastern Time, that's about midnight local time in Israel and Gaza, seemed to suggest that it was the entire northern part of the Gaza Strip. The spokesman there, Doron, saying that it was now just Gaza City. Now, there are still around 600,000 people that live in Gaza City, so a little bit less than 1/3 of the entire population of the Gaza Strip. And he didn't really clarify too much as to whether there would be, corridors or specific times that Israel would hold off from striking, simply that Israel would take that into account. They would factor into account the fact that many residents will be moving south. Now, we know that the United Nations Refugee Agency for the Palestinians, for example, has moved its central operations to the south and moving its staff as well. And despite calls by Hamas to the civilians, to the citizens of the Gaza Strip, calling on them to not fall prey to not to pay any attention to these calls by Israel to move south, one imagines that certainly those who can would err on the side of caution and move south and follow those instructions from the IDF to try to ensure that they do not be added to the rising count of civilian casualties inside the Strip. Kim?
Well, let me ask you about that. Exactly, this is happening in the context of an already worsening humanitarian situation in Gaza.
Quite, and the United Nations saying that it's impossible to move that many people south without devastating humanitarian consequences, in its words. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has asked for clarification. Israel's envoy to the UN has called the UN's response to its early warning shameful. So that debate is obviously ongoing, and all the while Israel is continuing its strikes on the Gaza Strip to try to take out not just infrastructure and weapon storage facilities and rocket launchers, but also the very people that it holds responsible for launching this devastating and brutal attack on Israel in the early hours of Saturday morning, which of course set off this current war that we're seeing right now. At least 1,300 people inside of Israel, the vast majority of them Israelis, and now more than 1,500 Palestinians inside the Gaza Strip have died as a result of those attacks, as I say, which began on Saturday morning. And just to update that deadline now, we're talking about 16 hours, 12, where are we now? We're 10 days, so 14 hours until that deadline for Palestinians in Gaza City to evacuate before that time runs out, and presumably Israeli airstrikes will be ramped up, potentially paving the way for that expected ground invasion. Kim?
Yeah, exactly. A ground invasion, I mean, it seems imminent. The Israeli military in years past has said it would crush Hamas. What's your sense about what's to come? How might this be different?
I think we're really just still seeing the early phases of this war. We don't have any specifics, obviously, in terms of Israeli tactics. They have gone in before. The last time was 2014. And clearly when Israel goes into the Gaza Strip, there is a likelihood of further, not just Israeli casualties, but further civilian casualties in the Gaza Strip as well. And of course, Israel knows that Hamas is expecting them. Hamas is not only expecting Israel to launch a ground invasion, but probably would welcome it, because it gives them more opportunity to inflict more casualties on Israel, and also to potentially kidnap, to take hostage more Israelis as well. There will be booby traps, there will be improvised explosive devices, there will be snipers just waiting for Israel to move in. And of course, there's a very sophisticated tunnel network that Hamas has underground in the Gaza Strip. Israel will no doubt have some of those mapped out, but not all of them. And so there is, I think, right now, from where we're standing, if and when this ground invasion comes, that it will probably be worse than ones that we've seen before in terms of casualties and the bitterness of the fighting that we have in store. Kim?
All right, I appreciate it. Elliot Gotkin in London, thanks so much. America's top diplomat is now in Jordan after spending Thursday in Israel. Antony Blinken is trying to prevent the Israel-Hamas conflict from spreading and hoping to secure the release of hostages. CNN's Becky Anderson has more from Tel Aviv.
The war between Israel and Hamas kicking off a flurry of diplomatic activity across the Middle East.
Sorry, it's under these circumstances.
US Secretary of State Antony Blinken landed in Tel Aviv on Thursday to show Washington's solidarity with Israel.
The message that I bring to Israel is this: you may be strong enough on your own to defend yourself, but as long as America exists, you will never ever have to. We will always be there by your side.
The Secretary of State also trying to secure the release of hostages taken by Hamas, working with allies such as Qatar to strike a deal for the release of Israeli women and children for Palestinian women and teenagers, according to a diplomatic source. But Hamas says it will not negotiate as long as it remains under attack from Israel. And Israel says it has cut off water, electricity and fuel as long as those hostages are held in Gaza. With a worsening humanitarian crisis in the besieged enclave, the US has warned Israel it must follow the laws of war amid talk of a massive ground assault. Elsewhere, talks underway with Egypt to allow civilians to exit Gaza via the Rafah border crossing. So far, no concrete deal there. Meanwhile, the crisis paving the way for the first ever phone call between Iran's president and Saudi Arabia's crown prince. Mohammed bin Salman stressing Saudi Arabia's efforts to hold any escalation and civilian targeting, as well as support for the Palestinian cause. And that risks Riyadh's much-awaited normalization deal with Israel. Jordan's King Abdullah, one of the first Arab states to strike a peace deal with Israel, renewing calls to establish a Palestinian state.
What the Palestinian territories are witnessing currently is evidence that again emphasizes that our area will not obtain peace and stability without achieving a comprehensive and just peace on the basis of the two-state solution, so that the Palestinian people can receive its independent country with sovereignty.
While Blinken is in region, he'll reportedly meet with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas on Friday. But despite the diplomatic pressure, peace in the region seems further away than ever. Becky Anderson, CNN, Tel Aviv.
All right, still to come, the White House confirms at least 27 Americans have been killed in the Israel-Hamas war, and we're learning more about their personal stories. Plus, Iran is blocked from accessing billions of dollars as part of a prisoner swap deal as the U.S. investigates the country for potential links to Hamas's attack. Now, details next.
I served in the Army for 11 years and deployed overseas 3 times. I understand the price of freedom, and I'm aware of the threats we face from our foreign adversaries. Countries like China, Russia, and Iran believe in oppression and censorship, and they want to dominate and use tomorrow's technologies against America. If you value free expression and an open internet, join me in sending a message to Congress. It's time to strengthen, not weaken, American technology.
Hi, it's Christina again. I'm here to tell you about an all-new special offer from my friends at Jacuzzi Bath Remodel that you don't want to miss. You already know, Jacuzzi has been making water feel great for more than 65 years. And now, they're bringing you this special TV offer. We're waiving all installation costs and postponing all payments for 1 year. Jacuzzi bath remodel has a design you'll love at a price you can afford. And, best of all, they can install it in as little as 1 day with no stress and no mess. Are you ready to see your new shower? Here it is.
It's fabulous! Taking a shower had gone from being a joy to being a burden. I was afraid I would fall. I called, and just 1 day, I had a shower I could feel safe in.
No matter your situation, Jacuzzi Bath Remodel has a solution for you. From a safer, easy entry shower with features like grab bars and a custom seat to keep you feeling comfortable and independent at home, to a stunning family bath, or how about a luxurious upgrade with a timeless design that will look great for years to come. Plus, they're built to last with a lifetime warranty from an iconic brand you know you can trust.
It was done the same day. We did not have to wait.
It's absolutely perfect. It's exactly what I was dreaming of. If you haven't already experienced what Jacuzzi Bath Remodel can do for you, your family, and your home, don't wait any longer. Now is the best time to call. It's never been easier. Take advantage of this special TV offer today.
Go to jacuzzibathremodel.com or call 800-321-0299. That's 800-321-0299. Call now.
Garderies. Shop, buy, sell online.
Over 13 million Americans were affected by identity theft in 2022. And the threats go way beyond just credit card fraud. Today's identity thieves can open loans, transfer home titles, and even commit crimes in your name.
Someone got my social security number, made a driver's license, and was used for criminal activity.
Your information is exposed through online shopping, banking, even corporate data breaches. No wonder there's a new victim of identity theft every 3 seconds. Only LifeLock alerts you to the widest volume of threats all in one place.
I clicked, "That's not me," and LifeLock took it from there.
If you become a victim, a dedicated US-based restoration specialist will work to fix the issue. All LifeLock members are backed by the LifeLock $1 Million Protection Package, including reimbursement for stolen funds.
I will be with LifeLock forever.
Enrollment takes just minutes. Call now or go online and use promo code GET25 to save 25% on your first year. Enroll now.
All right, happening now, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has arrived in Israel. These pictures from just moments ago. He's scheduled to meet with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, his Israeli counterpart, and the newly created Israeli War Cabinet. His visit follows one by U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken on Thursday. U.S. officials are scrambling to get Americans stranded in Israel back home safely. The Biden administration says it will start chartering flights today to destinations in Europe. Travelers will be then ferried home on U.S.-based and other carriers. United, American, and Delta Airlines all stopped flying to and from Israel earlier this week over safety concerns. The White House on Thursday confirmed the number of Americans killed in the conflict is now 27. 14 U.S. nationals are still missing, and we're learning their names and their stories. Here's CNN's Erica Hill.
Beaming smiles, everyday joy, now forever frozen in time.
She's an amazing person, and each and every one that met her have loved her. She's done nothing wrong and nothing bad to anyone.
Eyal Waldman's 25-year-old daughter Danielle was born in California. She and her boyfriend Noam recently moved into a new apartment. They adopted a dog and were building a life together.
They went to a party to celebrate peace and love.
Danielle and Noam never made it home from the Nova Music Festival.
She told me in the last meeting that she and Noam have decided that they will get married. Unfortunately, we will bury them together.
Aryeh Shlomo Ziering was a captain in the IDF's dog handling unit. The dual citizen spent his summers at camp in the U.S. His aunt, Debbie, describes Aryeh as a fun-loving, athletic kid who was passionate about protecting his country. Captain Ziering was 27. Igal Walk's ex-wife says he moved back to Israel 2 years ago to care for his mother. On Saturday, Hamas attacked the village where they lived.
Igal and his brother were part of the security team, the patrol team in the village.
Igal and his brother Amit, both Israeli Americans, were killed.
Brother was Yonatan, Johnny. Everyone called him Johnny. Tamari is my sister-in-law. She was running for the council of the area of a bunch of villages. She was such uplifting, such quality human being.
Renee Butler's brother Johnny and his young family, along with her mother, Carol Simintov, were murdered at the Nir Oz kibbutz on Saturday.
Great loss. Such a big, a beautiful tribe we had. Half of our family is gone. This is our life. This is our love. I had 14 nieces and nephews. I have 11 now.
A family shattered as countless more wait for word on their loved ones and wonder whether they will ever be whole again. Erica Hill, CNN, New York.
Iran has been temporarily blocked from accessing billions of dollars as part of a prisoner swap deal between Washington and Tehran. Now, the move comes as U.S. officials investigate Iran's possible involvement in Hamas's attack on Israel. CNN's Alex Marquardt has the details.
The $6 billion set to be released to Iran in exchange for the recent swap of 5 American prisoners that they were holding. That deal is now on hold after Hamas, which is backed primarily by Iran, carried out the horrific and deadly attacks in Israel over the weekend. A U.S. official from the Treasury Department told members of Congress on Thursday that the United States and Qatar have reached a, quote, quiet understanding not to allow Iran to access any of the $6 billion in Iranian funds that were transferred to Qatari accounts last month as part of that hostage deal. The money is Iranian, but is still in Qatari banks and was set to be doled out by the U.S. Treasury Department for Iran's essential humanitarian purposes. Now, a congressional source tells CNN that those funds would not be touched by Iran anytime soon. Here's what Secretary of State Antony Blinken said on Thursday in Israel when he was asked about the money.
Funds from that account are overseen by the Treasury Department, can only be dispensed for humanitarian goods, food, medicine, medical equipment, and never touch Iranian hands. We have strict oversight of the funds, and we retain the right to freeze them.
The U.S. and Israeli intelligence communities have found so far no smoking gun tying Iran to Saturday's attacks directly. But Iran's longtime backing of Hamas over the years, with millions and millions of dollars in funding and weapons, has made Iran, according to the Biden administration, complicit in Hamas's attacks in Israel. Alex Marquardt, CNN, Washington.
Now, that decision to freeze the $6 billion Iranian fund comes after growing bipartisan pressure. CNN's Wolf Blitzer talked about this earlier in conversation with Aaron Burnett. Yes.
But now the Biden administration has apparently agreed with so many others that that $6 billion could be fungible. If the Iranians get the $6 billion through Qatar, through this program, they could free up $6 billion that they have to use for food and medicine in other areas and free it up to do other things. And I think that the Biden administration now realizes that is a mistake, given what they see as Iran's complicity in this Hamas attack on Israel. They say there's no direct evidence that there's no compelling evidence that Iran was directly involved with Hamas in this war, but they think that over the years the support that Iran has given Hamas and Hezbollah, other terrorist organizations, makes them complicit in this, and so they don't want to be seen as providing any money for whatever purpose to Iran right now. They probably sense it was a mistake to begin in this direction, given the fact that for several administrations, Iran has been seen as the #1 state sponsor of terrorism.
Now, in all the conflicts between Israel and Hamas over the years, there's been and still is one constant. Civilians are always caught in the violence. The war's toll on Gaza's children. Next, Plus, no power, no water, no medical supplies. Gaza's health system is being pushed to the brinks of collapse under intense Israeli bombardment.
If your roof is showing danger signs like streaks or raised shingles, it could be trouble. And a new roof could cost $10,000, $15,000, or $20,000.
Introducing RoofMax, the first professional and affordable roofing treatment that is scientifically proven
to strengthen and extend the life of your roof.
With RoofMax, you'll have the protection of a brand new roof and save thousands. RoofMax's skilled technicians apply a safe, effective, and affordable natural treatment. And within hours, you have a roof that performs like a new roof. RoofMax's exclusive treatment resaturates old, dried shingles with a natural, bio-friendly formula that quickly restores flexibility and water-repelling protection guaranteed. Look, this is a 17-year-old asphalt shingle. It literally disintegrates. But here's an identical shingle that we treated with RoofMax's proven formula.
It passed rigorous flexibility testing from The Ohio State University as a new shingle.
So a RoofMax roof can also pass a home inspection if you're getting ready to sell or for insurance, saving you money.
RoofMax has treated over 50 million square feet of roofs all across America. And just check out our website for the thousands of 5-star reviews.
You know, I was skeptical at first with the existing condition of the roofs. We were having high winds and shingles were blowing off the roofs continually. But, you know, 5 years later, after the application, the roofs look great. And we have no issues with any shingles blowing off the roof.
Keep your family safe and happy with RoofMax.
Call or go online now for a comprehensive leak threat analysis and roof maintenance tune-up. A $539 value free. RoofMax. More life, less money, guaranteed.
Call 1-800-520-7901. That's 1-800-520-7901. Or log on to roofmax.com. Call 1-800-520-7901 now.
Does someone who threatens Putin's power ever die unintentionally in Russia?
I don't think so. He just leaves all this carnage in his wake.
You think he cares about that?
No, he doesn't.
The Source with Caitlin Collins. Tomorrow at 9.
For generations, Asuyus has been the small-town gem of the Okanagan and the home of Canada's warmest welcome. You can help keep it that way. Visit and see for yourself. We're home to terrific holiday adventures for everyone. Relax, dine, shop, and explore. Through your support of local business and by sharing your experiences, Asuyus will continue to thrive for generations to come. Plan your visit today at destinationasuyus.com.
Yellow lines are everywhere, guiding us when we need a little help, giving us a heads up, and warning us before we cross them. So that when life doesn't give us a yellow line,
Can you grab that?
we know what to do. Let's keep it preventable.
Welcome back to all of you watching us here in the United States, Canada, and all around the world. I'm Kim Brunhuber. This is CNN Newsroom. The Israeli military is calling on all civilians in Gaza City to begin evacuating southwards now, today. But it's not clear where 1 million civilians are supposed to go. The IDF claims Hamas fighters are hiding in tunnels beneath the city and want civilians out of harm's way.
The aim here is to minimize the damage to civilians. There are significant combat operations ongoing, and we are preparing for future and the continuance of our combat operations, and out of an understanding that there are civilians here whom are not our enemy, and we do not want to target them. We are asking them to evacuate so that we will be able to continue to strike military targets belonging to Hamas in the Gaza Strip.
Israel has now amassed about 300,000 troops along the Gaza border and has been pounding Hamas targets non-stop with airstrikes and artillery. The UN says more than 423,000 people in Gaza have been displaced by the conflict between Israel and Hamas, and that figure marks a 25% increase in just one day. More than 2/3 of those displaced are taking shelter in schools run by the UN. At least 2 of those UN schools were being used as emergency shelters when they were hit by airstrikes. The organization says 12 of its staff and 30 of its students have been killed since Saturday. Relief groups are calling for the protection of civilians in Gaza as the humanitarian crisis worsens by the hour. CNN's Nada Bashir reports, and we just want to warn you, her report contains graphic content.
Gripped by grief and loss of unfathomable scale, Gaza's death toll and the number of civilians wounded is rising with each and every airstrike. In the El Shate refugee camp, men dig with their bare hands, desperate to rescue loved ones from beneath the rubble of what once were their homes. Saad begins to list the names of the children killed in this latest strike. Among them, his niece. She was just a few months old. Now, she is one of more than 440 children Gaza's health ministry says has been killed by Israeli airstrikes so far. Israel says it is striking Hamas targets, but authorities here say medical facilities, schools, and residential areas have been impacted. Our neighbors said that the Israelis had called and told them to evacuate the area around our home, so we came to stay with relatives here in El Shate, Nabil says. But the next morning, when we woke up to pray at dawn, the airstrike happened. There was no warning. The densely populated Gaza Strip, which has been under an Israeli land, sea and air blockade since 2007, is home to more than 2 million people. Around 47% of them are children. So far, at least 340,000 people have been displaced within Gaza. Many are now forced to take shelter in UN-run schools like this one. But civilians here are also now facing what the Israeli government has described as a complete siege on Gaza. There's no water for us to drink, no water for us to wash ourselves with so that we can pray, Maram says. They've bombed our schools, many people have been killed. It's not fair for children like us. Why is this happening to us? Life under a blockade is all that the children of Gaza have ever known. For some, like 13-year-old Nadine, it is hard to imagine a future beyond this relentless conflict.
The last couple of nights have been the worst couple of nights I've ever lived in my life. This is not living. This is existing. We're not planning our futures anymore. We're just trying to survive.
But survival in Gaza is becoming more and more difficult by the day. The humanitarian situation is rapidly deteriorating. And while the UN has condemned what it has described as Israel's unlawful blockade on Gaza and the indiscriminate nature of Israel's airstrikes, there is little hope that the bloodshed will end here. Nada Bashir, CNN.
The Biden administration says it stands by Israel, but there's only so much it can do without a functioning Congress. Ongoing U.S. military aid to Israel is on the table, of course, but there's no scenario for sending U.S. troops to rescue American hostages in Gaza. Yet that's what Republican presidential candidate Tim Scott told voters he would do as president. Here he is.
But we should be in a position where our resources and our military weaponry is available and accessible to replenish Israel as the need arises over the next several months, I assume. If it takes our special forces to go get our hostages, take an American, cost you your life, but I'm willing to send an American, bring an American back.
U.S. House Republicans are expected to meet behind closed doors Friday morning, hoping to find some way to agree on a new leader. House Majority Leader Steve Scalise pulled out of the running for the top position late Thursday after it became clear his fractured party wouldn't come together to support him.
If you look at over the last few weeks, if you look at where our conference is, there's still work to be done. Our conference still has to come together and is not there. There are still some people that have their own agendas, and I was very clear, we have to have everybody put their agendas on the side and focus on what this country needs.
Now, Friday will be the 9th day U.S. House Republicans have operated without a leader since Kevin McCarthy became the first Speaker of the House in history to be ousted by his party. We'll be right back.
Do you struggle to fall asleep and stay asleep? Cunol Sleep Support has a unique blend of 5 key ingredients that can help you fall asleep faster, stay asleep longer, so you can wake up refreshed. Cunol, the brand I trust.
When I was in Iraq, our convoy was hit. It was bad. After I came home, I could still hear booms and see tracer fire. Makes it hard to be a good mom.
As America's veterans face challenges, DAV is there.
I'm Naomi Mathis, Air Force veteran.
With the right support, more veterans can reach victories great and small.
With help from DAV, I was able to begin to heal.
DAV provides a lifetime of support to veterans of every generation, helping more than 1 million veterans each year.
Today I'm part of DAV. We're veterans helping veterans to get the benefits they've earned. And I give my veterans my all.
But there's more to be done, and more victories to be won.
My victory is being able to be here for my children.
Naomi Mathis, thank you for your service. May your victories inspire many more. Support more victories for veterans. Go to DAV.org.
Is Ukraine going to win this war?
We bring the stories that matter to the masses.
I love my parents. Since they've gotten older, we've had to have some not-so-fun conversations about their wishes if something were to happen to them.
As an estate planning attorney, most people that would come to my office were looking to create a will for their family, but many couldn't afford the fees.
That's why we started Trust and Will, a modern and affordable approach to estate planning.
Attorney-designed documents, customized by you, all through an easy-to-use website.
The way a will should be. Find the plan that's right for you at trustandwill.com.
That's $78.29.
Oh, I've only got $50. Take out the cheese puffs and the broccoli. I mean, who likes broccoli?
Hello. Only $22.87 to go.
It would be faster with the Empower app. Empower Cash Advance gives you up to $250 instantly. No late fees, interest, or credit checks.
I've got money. Keep the cheese puffs, but leave out the broccoli.
Get Empower Cash Advance up to $250 instantly. Download the Empower app today.
The White House says it has no plans to put U.S. troops on the ground in Israel ahead of an expected military incursion into Gaza. CNN's Nick Robertson reports on the preparations.
Israel's newly emerging front line in the war with Hamas. Heavy howitzers just dug in, firing on the terror group a few miles away in Gaza. Part of Israel's massive military build-up since Hamas's attacks Saturday. Many of the 300,000 reservists called up already deployed ahead of a highly anticipated ground offensive into Gaza. These are exactly the same gun positions the Israeli Defense Forces used in their last major confrontation with the Hamas back in 2021. The question now, will this confrontation be different? Will Israel actually be able to crush Hamas, as the Prime Minister says he wants to do? Military offensives haven't beaten them before and won't be easy now. The Palestinian death toll and unintended consequence of Israeli shelling and missile strikes is climbing. Thursday, staunch ally the US cautioning care.
The Prime Minister and I discussed how Israel does this matters. We democracies distinguish ourselves from terrorists by striving for a different standard, even when it's difficult.
And it will be difficult. Israel is still reeling from the deadliest, most barbaric attack on its citizens since the state was founded. Anger at Hamas is high, so too pressure on the Prime Minister to act decisively. He's calling for more international support as he plans his offensive.
Hamas should be treated exactly the way ISIS was treated. They should be spit out from the community of nations. No leader should meet them. No country should harbor them. And those that do should be sanctioned.
In the meantime, Hamas is still getting into Israel. This gun battle with them late Wednesday.
There were multiple incursions by Hamas terrorists yesterday. I drove right through Sder Road during the time when 3 terrorists were out, again, looking for civilians to kill.
The tempo of fire here, far higher than in 2021. A drumbeat that seems to signal a ground offensive, all but inevitable. Even so, its outcome, far from certain. Nick Robertson, CNN, Sderot, Israel.
Funerals were held Thursday for some of the people who've been killed over the last few days. Israeli families gathered in Jerusalem's Mount Herzl cemetery to attend the funerals of soldiers killed in the conflict with Hamas. Meanwhile, Palestinians mourned the deaths of 5 of their own who were killed by Israeli settlers and forces in the occupied West Bank. The nationalities of the victims of the Hamas attacks last weekend stretch right across the globe. They include Thailand, Brazil, Russia, the UK, Australia, and Ukraine. Now, so many people watching feel compelled to help with humanitarian relief efforts, so CNN is compiling resources, so you can head to cnn.com/impact, and there you can find a list of vetted organizations that are responding on the ground at cnn.com/impact. The European Commission has launched an investigation into Elon Musk's social media site X over disinformation about the Israel-Hamas war. The probe into the platform, formerly known as Twitter, covers its policies and practices on illegal content, how it handles complaints and risk assessment. X claims it has removed, quote, hundreds of Hamas-affiliated accounts. CNN's Donny O'Sullivan has more now on some viral images that claim to be about the war. They're actually fake.
One video shows a rocket purportedly fired by Hamas. Another video claims to show Israeli jets bombing Gaza, but neither is real. This video is actually footage from a video game called Arma 3, and this is actually video of soccer celebrations in Algeria. It's all part of a tidal wave of viral mis- and disinformation circulating around the Israel-Hamas conflict. Adi Cohn works with Mamitica, an online threat intelligence service. He's been monitoring misinformation like this, a fake BBC News report that falsely claimed Ukraine had provided weapons to Hamas.
This is relatively sophisticated stuff. I mean, it's got even the same kind of graphic set as the BBC News normally would have.
Right, and I think what happened over recent years, that it becomes very easy, affordable to mimic those graphics, visualization.
In response to the false news report, the BBC told CNN in a statement, "In a world of increasing disinformation, we urge everyone to ensure they are getting news from a trusted source." Just hours after the Hamas attack began on Saturday, this began circulating on social media. A fake White House memo falsely claiming the US was immediately sending billions of dollars in new aid to Israel.
This is like some more old school disinformation. A fake White House document circulated pretty widely online.
Right. I do want to point out, though, it is an old school tactic that we've seen, for multiple years by now, but with the current tools, you can also create it very quickly and make it more believable.
There's new information every second, every minute, every hour, and so there's a lot of room for error as things develop on the ground.
Graham Brookie tracks disinformation with the Atlantic Council's Digital Forensic Research Lab.
And this conflict is hyper-connected. Israel is a very, very connected country, and so we're seeing an enormous amount of misleading content coming out of this conflict as the world's eyes are watching it.
Twitter, now known as X, is a major source of misinformation, in part because of the changes Elon Musk made to the platform since he took it over, including laying off key employees. On Thursday, the European Commission announced it was opening an investigation into disinformation on X about the Israel-Hamas conflict.
Another component of it, I would say, is that because several platforms have scaled back on moderation, it's much easier to spread rumors, unsubstantiated rumors, false information very quick.
But this isn't just an information war. It's a real war. And false information can be fatal.
And that disinformation is extraordinarily harmful, including putting folks' lives at risk.
Now, X, formerly Twitter, says that it is moving resources around at the company after, of course, it had all those layoffs under Musk to try and address some of these issues. But look, this is not a problem that is exclusive to X. It is happening on other platforms as well, but right now it's quite pronounced. On X, you can see false videos, misleading videos, getting hundreds of thousands, millions of views on the platform before anything is really done about them. And of course, the real tragedy is here, there is no need to post these fake videos and images. We have seen the tragic footage, the real footage from Israel and Gaza, and of course it is upsetting enough. These fake videos and images really just adding to the chaos, confusion and concern. Tony O'Sullivan, CNN, New York.
Israel's military says it will investigate information from a CNN report revealing that Hamas spent 2 years preparing for Saturday's massive attacks on Israel. Analysis shows much of the practice work was done inside Gaza, and some of it more than a mile or less than 2 kilometers from the most heavily patrolled border with Israel. Our Clarissa Ward has details.
Propaganda videos put out by Hamas reveal chilling details about the years of preparations that went into Saturday's bloody attacks right under Israel's nose. Analyzing metadata from the videos, a CNN investigation can reveal the presence of at least 6 training sites inside Gaza, one just 720 meters from the most heavily fortified and patrolled part of Israel's border. In that camp, Hamas recreated an Israeli compound with elements of the nearby border crossing, including an insignia of the Erez battalion. The videos show they even practiced taking prisoners and zip-tying their hands at the camp. Satellite imagery indicates the camp was constructed within the last year and a half. At 2 other locations in the southern part of Gaza, Hamas trained for their audacious paraglider assault, rehearsing takeoffs and landings. At all 6 sites, 2 years of satellite imagery reviewed by CNN shows no indication of offensive Israeli military action. The imagery instead shows that in the last 2 years, some camps even expanded into surrounding farmland, and that there was activity in the last several months at the camps. The stunning revelations raise questions as to how Hamas was able to train so openly, so close to the border for so long, and why Israeli officials were unable to pick up on and prevent the October 7th attack. Clarissa Ward, CNN.
All right, still to come, protests erupt at U.S. college campuses over the Israel-Hamas war. We'll hear from students next. Stay with us.
You should Angie that.
Angie what?
Angie that. It means connecting with skilled professionals to get all your home projects done well, so you can focus on the important stuff. It means seeing millions of ratings and reviews, so you can feel confident. It means comparing quotes or booking at an upfront price, so you can choose the best price for you, because we want everyone to get the most out of their homes. Get started today at Angie.com.
Businesses need 5G solutions today. That's why they choose T-Mobile for Business. MLB partners with T-Mobile to not only enhance the fan experience, but to advance how the game is played. AAA relies on T-Mobile's network to stay connected nationwide so they can help get their members back on the road. And we're helping Pano AI innovate to stop the spread of wildfires. Now's the time to see what America's largest 5G network can do for your business.
Hi, it's Christina again. I'm here to tell you about an all-new special offer from my friends at Jacuzzi Bath Remodel that you don't want to miss. You already know, Jacuzzi has been making water feel great for more than 65 years. And now, they're bringing you this special TV offer. We're waiving all installation costs and postponing all payments for 1 year. Jacuzzi Bath Remodel has a design you'll love at a price you can afford. And, best of all, they can install it in as little as 1 day with no stress and no mess. Are you ready to see your new shower? Here it is.
It's fabulous! Taking a shower had gone from being a joy to being a burden. I was afraid I would fall. I called, and just 1 day, I had a shower I could feel safe in.
No matter your situation, Jacuzzi Bath Remodel has a solution for you. From a safer, easy entry shower with features like grab bars and a custom seat to keep you feeling comfortable and independent at home, to a stunning family bath, or how about a luxurious upgrade with a timeless design that will look great for years to come. Plus, they're built to last with a lifetime warranty from an iconic brand you know you can trust.
It was done the same day. We did not have to wait.
It's absolutely perfect. It's exactly what I was dreaming of.
If you haven't already experienced what Jacuzzi Bath Remodel can do for you, your family, and your home, don't wait any longer. Now is the best time to call. It's never been easier. Take advantage of this special TV offer today.
Go to jacuzzibathremodel.com or call 800-321-0299. That's 800-321-0299. Call now.
To finally lose 80 pounds and keep it off with Golo is amazing.
I've been maintaining, the weight is gone, and it's never coming back.
With Golo, I've not only kept off the weight, but I'm happier, I'm healthier, and I have a new lease on life.
Golo is the only thing that will let you lose weight and keep it off.
Who loses 138 pounds in 9 months? I did. Golo's a lifestyle change, and you make the change, and it stays off.
Closed captioning brought to you by InVetHelp. Call 1-800-710-0020.
Do you have an invention idea but don't know what to do next? Call InventHelp today. They can help you get started with your idea.
Call now. 800-710-0020.
Well, it's difficult for many to fully appreciate the anguish of Israeli families who've lost loved ones in such barbaric and senseless massacres. One mother was on the phone with her daughter, who was trapped at the music festival with gunfire all around. She still doesn't know if her daughter is dead or taken hostage. Here she is speaking earlier with CNN's Jake Tapper.
They finally went from the car and go to the bushes, trying to hide, moving from bush to bush, and we all the time talked with her, and we heard the shooting all around them, and they are hiding, kids with no weapon, no nothing. At some point, just before 10 o'clock, a very good friend of Gaia came back. He was already out of this area, but he came back to take them, to rescue them. And his name is Ben Shimoni, and he was taking another boy with them, Ofir Tzarfati. The four of them tried to leave the area. They didn't get much further when I got a phone call from Romy at 10:15, crying, shouting, saying, "Mommy, we were shot. They shoot the car. We cannot move. The car does not start. We cannot move. All of us are badly wounded, badly injured. Gaia is not talking to me. Ben is not talking. Ofir and I are wounded." Ofir was telling me his name and gave me his mother's number so I can call her. And Romy was so afraid. She was saying, "Mommy, I'm going to die." And I said, "No, you're not going to die. You're coming back, and we will find a way to take you out of there." And she was asking, "Mommy, how can you take me out of here? Please come and take us. Please tell somebody, tell the army, tell the police, tell them to come." I tried to call the police. We tried to see how Air Force can maybe take a plane or a helicopter to try and rescue them, and there was nothing to do. I could only lie to her and tell her that we're doing everything. It's not a lie. We try to do everything, but I knew we cannot help them.
Yeah. Is that the last time you heard from her?
Yes, the last thing I heard from them is the shooting around them. We were talking slightly. She was fading away, and we heard the shooting around them, and then a lot of people talking in Arabic, shouting in Arabic. Somebody tried to start the engine but couldn't do it, and then somebody hanged the phone, and that's it.
Here in the U.S., tensions are rising at college campuses from Harvard to UCLA over the Israel-Hamas war. CNN's Nick Watt reports.
A so-called Day of Resistance on campuses across the country, called by National Students for Justice in Palestine, which hails the Hamas terror attacks as a historic win for the Palestinian resistance across land, air, and sea.
That's the justification of the murder of Jews, as we've seen throughout history, under a different name.
At San Diego State, one pro-Palestinian protester said this.
We're not for any lives lost, no matter what, Palestinian or Israeli.
We found that 57% of Jewish students in the U.S. have experienced or seen anti-Semitism. That was before this occurred. Now we're seeing the levels rise, the incidents rise, the complaints rise.
At Harvard, a statement released within hours of the attacks begins, "We, the undersigned student organizations, hold the Israeli regime entirely responsible for all unfolding violence." Some have recanted after a backlash that included a billionaire hedge fund boss asking Harvard to name members of the groups that signed, so none of us inadvertently hire them. Last night, their names and faces emblazoned on a truck in Harvard Square by a conservative organization. Such intimidation is counterproductive, said Harvard Hillel, a Jewish student group.
The conversation about what is and isn't productive discourse is something that we're seeing really taking shape.
A major UPenn benefactor has called on other alums to close the checkbooks after what he said was college leaders' apparent failure to condemn the views of some speakers at a recent Palestinian literary festival on campus. Even after the Hamas attacks, college officials have condemned anti-Semitism. Los Angeles Tuesday, a pro-Israel rally just a stone's throw from the UCLA campus. The Cultural Affairs Commission of UCLA, a student group, posted Monday, "We honor the Palestinians on the front lines, taking their land and sovereignty back." They say this is not anti-Semitism. Judaism is separate from the political movement of Zionism.
These are UCLA organizations, and they have the permission to say these things. It's absolutely absurd.
I mean, you're holding an Israeli flag. Is that something you'd be okay doing on campus?
Oftentimes on campus, I feel scared to hold a flag if I'm not with a big group. There's a lot of anti-Semitism on campus, and it's always felt at all times.
And now we're on the UCLA campus where today a large pro-Palestinian rally. Listen, the tensions are only going to heighten after what happened in the Middle East, what's going to happen in the Middle East, and also tensions, particularly on campuses, over where is that line between standing up for Palestinian human rights and glorifying murder. Nick Watt, CNN, Los Angeles.
Well, that wraps this hour of CNN Newsroom. I'm Kim Brunhuber. Our coverage continues with Max Foster and Bianca Noble after a short break.
Attention hearing loss sufferers. Do you struggle hearing loved ones? Do you have trouble keeping up with conversations? Do you listen to TV on max volume? Hearing loss affects your life. You miss out on important moments. You feel alone.
Start hearing better today with RCA's all-new advanced hearing aids. These aren't cheap amplifiers that don't really work, and you'll never have to pay thousands again. The FDA now allows us to bring true high-quality hearing aids direct to you. Through RCA's Hearing America program, you can get your choice of 2 state-of-the-art ultra-discreet hearing aids listed at $11.99 now for a special introductory price, or pay as little as only $29 a month with free shipping.
They're affordable. They're not the cost that people associate with hearing aids.
My old-fashioned one cost me $5,000, and these actually work better.
Engineered with advanced technology, the RCAs are rechargeable and have easy-to-use volume controls built right in. And unlike so many others, with the push of a button, these hearing aids give you presets for better hearing in a quiet setting, loud restaurants, or listening to music. You can adjust them to help you hear the best wherever you are. There are no tools required and no batteries to fumble with.
When I first popped them in, I went, wow, I hear everything.
Simply slip in your RCA hearing aids and instantly hear your world again.
Grandpa, I love you.
Never miss a moment again.
You know RCA. The quality's there.
To clear it up, decades of frustration in a second.
Order now, and we'll ship your pair of FDA-registered hearing aids in your choice of style with incredible savings. Pay as low as only $29 a month. You get a 45-day money-back guarantee, free 24/7 U.S.-based support, a portable charging case, and free shipping. With RCA, you can be hearing better in just days. Order yours now.
Call 800-677-6954 or visit rcahearingaids.com. That's 800-677-6954.
Being a journalist is the best job in the world. Asking challenging questions of the folks who run the world.
Is Ukraine going to win this war? Yes, of course.
You ready?
The Lead with Jay Tapper, CNN, tomorrow at 4.
I grew up in the Fraser Valley, so when I get a chance, I come home to explore what's new. Welcome to the township of Langley. I love taking my time over coffee, visiting farmers markets, walking the miles of scenic trails, and maybe even hitting the links. I'm still discovering everything that Langley has to offer, from shopping to wine tours, farm experiences to professional sports, restaurants, and more. When I visit Langley, it's always something special. Explore Langley, BC this summer. Visit tourism-langley.ca for a complete guide. Hello.
Welcome. You mind munchies, huh?
Yokoso.
Yes. Let's go.
Let's go.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Hello and welcome to our viewers joining us in the United States and all around the world. I'm Bianca Nobilo.
I'm Max Foster. It is Friday, October the 13th, 9 a.m. here in London, 11 a.m. in Gaza City, where Israel is telling all civilians to leave their homes today and head south. It's the clearest signal yet that Israel plans to intensify its military operations in Gaza after their mass terror attacks over the weekend that left 1,300 people dead. The Israeli military says Hamas terrorists are hiding in tunnels underneath houses, using people as human shields. Israel reports its jets struck 750 military targets in northern Gaza overnight, hitting tunnels, weapons, storage warehouses, and the homes of senior terrorist operatives.
America's top diplomat is in Jordan today for talks with King Abdullah and Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas. Antony Blinken is trying to arrange a humanitarian corridor to get food and medical supplies into Gaza and to get civilians out. In Israel on Thursday, he met with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to reaffirm US support, but he also urged Israel to be cautious in its approach to Gaza. Blinken spoke with the families of Americans who were killed or taken hostage in Saturday's Hamas terror attacks. US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin is visiting Israel today.
For more on Israel's call for civilians to leave Gaza, let's bring in journalist Elliot Gotkin. So tell us about the deadline and what we know about which area of Gaza is expected to go.
So the warning was handed by Israel to the United Nations at around about 5 p.m. Eastern time, so that is around about midnight Israel and Gaza time. So it's due to run out, if you like. The clock will run out at midnight tonight on Friday. So we are talking in it's 11 o'clock now in Israel, so we've got 13 hours until that deadline expires. And what Israel has said, and their specific statement said, civilians of Gaza City, evacuate south for your own safety and the safety of your families, and distance yourselves from Hamas terrorists who are using you as human shields. Now, we've spoken with a couple of IDF spokespeople already this morning, and this initial warning seemed to be suggesting the whole northern part of Gaza, so about 10 kilometers in the whole northern part, and then the spokesman seemed to be saying that actually it just applies to Gaza City. But even if it's not the full 1.1 million people that the United Nations says is going to be affected that has to evacuate south, it would still be around about 600,000 people, the population of Gaza City, which is almost a third of the entire population of the Gaza Strip, having to move south over the other side of Wadi Gaza to get out of harm's way. Because the IDF is saying, clearly, we want to minimize civilian casualties, is what they're saying. So we want civilians to move out of the way, and presumably once that happens, Israel's bombardment and the likelihood and the imminence of a ground invasion will draw nearer.
Overnight, the intense bombardment continued in Gaza. What do we know about the impact that has had on civilians in Gaza and potentially hostages that have been taken from Israel?
Well, in terms of the humanitarian situation, we've already heard hospitals saying that it's a calamitous situation. The United Nations also saying that if this many people have to move south, saying that actually in its words that it is impossible to move that many people south, or for that many people to evacuate south without, in its words, devastating humanitarian consequences. And we know that the United Nations Refugee Agency for the Palestinians has already moved its central operations south. In terms of the Israeli hostages, we know that there are between 100 and 150 hostages being held by Hamas since they abducted them at the start of that attack on Saturday morning. Now, according to Hamas, that they are now saying in the last few minutes that 13 hostages have been killed by Israel's own strikes on the Gaza Strip. Now, we don't have independent verification of that clearly, and obviously it's in Hamas's interests to either say for psychological reasons or to imply that the deaths of these hostages is due to Israeli strikes, but that is what they are saying right now, and clearly this will add to the pain of the families of those people that have been abducted, who are just waiting for news on their loved ones.
And you know the geography of this area. How workable do you really think that evacuation is in 13 hours?
It's hard to say. I'm not there on the ground in Gaza to see. There's been a lot of bombardment of buildings, of roads. There's probably unexploded ordnances around. There are presumably elderly and young people who may not be as mobile. The IDF says that it will factor in to its calculations of strikes and the like the fact that these people are going to be on the move. Now, I should also know that Hamas has said to residents of Gaza, don't pay any attention to what the Israelis are saying, neither the statement nor, it seems, voice notes that have been left on mobile phones of the residents of the Gaza Strip. One can only assume that residents will err on the side of caution and move to the south of where they are right now from Gaza City in order to move out of harm's way and reduce the likelihood that they are added to those growing statistics of civilian casualties.
Stay with us. We'll speak to the IDF next, aren't we?
Yes, joining us now from Tel Aviv is Lieutenant Colonel Peter Lerner with the Israel Defense Forces. Good to have you on the program again. Talk us through what is behind this latest evacuation order, and if you could just be extremely specific about the areas that you're asking to be evacuated in Gaza, because there's been some cross-communication about that.
I'm not aware of any cross-communication. Our announcement has been very clear that people in the north of the Gaza Strip need to evacuate beyond the Nahal Aza, the Gaza Wadi, for their own safety. The steps are in anticipation, like we ourselves evacuated the people from the southern communities in the surrounding areas of the Gaza Strip. In order to keep people out of harm's way, we're encouraging them to leave. And unfortunately, what we have seen is Hamas is telling people, no, stay and sacrifice yourself. The situation on the ground is as such. The military is expanding its operations in order to strike Hamas and prevent them from ever being able to attack us again. We are still burying the people that were butchered by Hamas. There are about 200 funerals a day, and we are still burying them. And I can still say there are still bodies in the field itself, and we're having difficulty getting to because of the situation on the ground. So I would say yes, people who care for their lives need to listen very carefully to what the IDF is saying. The people of Gaza are not our enemy, and they should listen when we say we are very serious about destroying Hamas's capability to ever inflict such terrorism on our people ever again.
It's not even a week since this terrible trauma was inflicted on your nation. But in terms of the communication that Bianca was referring to there, one of your colleagues suggested it was just Gaza City that's being evacuated, not the whole of northern Gaza. So what do you, because you just said it's all of northern Gaza, can you just explain which areas?
No, I just want to confirm the situation is that the announcement was northern Gaza. So I want to confirm that, and we will check it out. I will update you in a couple of minutes. If you could have told me that beforehand, maybe I would have prepared that there was some misunderstanding. I wasn't aware of that.
No, you're in a war footing. Totally understand that there's so much going on and lots of coordination that needs to be done. Just if I can ask you, in your heart of hearts, do you really think this evacuation is workable? I'm just thinking of one example: someone in hospital in Gaza City. You're expecting them to somehow find an ambulance with fuel, already impossible, then get past bombed out roads, in immense amounts of traffic, and also avoiding airstrikes. How is that workable, and do you really think it is?
So it's not what I think. I know, we have, as I said, the situation is a realization of what Hamas has done. And they need to take care of the people of Gaza. But what have they done? They're jeopardizing them. So I would say it's possible, and of course it's going to be difficult in the 24 hours, and it might take longer than 24 hours, but we're pushing people to take action and take care of themselves immediately, because we need to prevent Hamas from doing this again. So yeah, the situation, and as you're reporting and following Steelan's reports extensively, of course there is a very dire situation developing on the ground, but it is all in the making of Hamas that has miserably let down the people of Gaza by attacking Israel. And so people need to listen to what the IDF is saying. We are very serious in our actions, and we are telling people evacuate. We're telling Hamas, if you care for the people of Gaza, evacuate them. Don't tell them to stay. Don't sacrifice your people any further. Leave them and make them move to the south of the Gaza Wadi.
Just before you joined us, our journalist that we have in studio, Elliot, was telling us that Hamas has claimed that 13 hostages have been killed in Israeli bombardment of Gaza. Obviously that hasn't been verified, and as Elliot pointed out, it's in Hamas's sort of psychological and strategic interest to claim that. But can you give us any update or new information about the status of the hostages in Gaza?
So I saw that as well, circulating on social media. I'm very cautious in believing anything Hamas says to begin with. So I hope that's not the situation. Our chief of staff yesterday, General Herzi Halevi, said very clearly that the influence of the hostages, the abductees, the men, women and children are at the top of our priorities, and we'll do everything to bring them home. And it is in Hamas's interest that they come home alive. It is their responsibility for their well-being, and they need to release them, and they need to release them immediately.
Will there be some sort of ceasefire to allow this evacuation, and what happens if you don't see an evacuation?
There's no expected ceasefire at this time, because we can't permit Hamas to regroup to conduct more attacks against us. The situation on the ground is developing, and we are pursuing those that conducted the attacks by us. They were so clever in circulating extensive footage on social media of themselves doing this butchery, that we're able to actually identify them and seek them out and hunt them down.
I'm wondering if there is any level of humanitarian toll or collateral damage that you would not be able to stomach in your position or on behalf of the Israeli people in retaliation for the terror that Hamas perpetrated in Israel?
Our retaliation is not against the people of Gaza, retaliation is against Hamas, and that is where we are. Those are our targets. They have intentionally and strategically embedded themselves deeply within the civilian population, and that's specifically why we're telling the civilian population, keep away from Hamas, move away from their facilities, try and keep away from them for your own well-being, because they don't care about you. So we are doing what we can in order to limit the civilian casualty, to limit the civilian influence on the arena, but Hamas is doing everything it can in order to make that worse, in order to exasperate the situation. We need to understand that Hamas cannot be permitted to rule the Gaza Strip and attack Israel the way it did ever again.
If this evacuation, rather not your evacuation, but the one you ordered, is successful, what happens afterwards? Obviously, it makes a ground invasion more likely, or the grounds for a ground invasion are there, but also what after that? Are people going to be allowed back in? Because the big fear of many Gazans is once they leave their areas, they aren't allowed back in.
Indeed, the call for evacuation is indeed to enable us to be, first of all, differentiate between Hamas and civilians on one hand, and that explicitly explains why Hamas is calling for them to stay. But we are in the midst of preparation for the potential of a ground operation, and that would obviously make that more feasible. But I would also emphasize that, you know, if we do receive the instructions to mobilize on the ground, then we need to be prepared to face whatever comes to us. So it would not be a condition for us to mobilize if that's the question, Max. I think we need to be prepared for every eventuality. We've recruited 300,000 reservists in the aftermath of the terrorist attack, precisely to restore security and safety to the people of Israel.
Okay. Lieutenant Colonel Peter Lerner, thank you so much for your time today. We know how busy you are, and if you could clarify exactly which areas are being evacuated.
And just getting it in.
Yeah.
Gaza City, just Gaza City.
Okay, thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, US officials are scrambling to get Americans stranded in Israel back home safely. The Biden administration says it will start chartering flights today to destinations in Europe.
Travellers will then be ferried home on US-based and other carriers. United, American and Delta Airlines all stopped flying to and from Israel earlier this week over safety concerns. Other countries have already been pulling out their citizens. Germany's first evacuation flight from Israel landed in Frankfurt on Thursday. Many of the evacuees received an emotional welcome by their friends and families. You can see officials say around 950 German citizens have been evacuated by air, land and sea.
Canadians are also getting out, landing in Athens on their first military plane sent by the government. Some evacuees say that they've lived under lockdown for days before they were able to leave.
We tried to leave on the day that the war started, and we were staying in Ashdod, which is about 45 minutes from Gaza, and we were in a lockdown situation. We could not leave, and we were in and out of the bomb shelter for 6 days, and we were finally evacuated today.
My wife's Canadian, and she was able to contact the Canadian government, and they were very responsive in providing an alternative, I guess, evacuation flights, which we took advantage of.
More than 1,600 Canadian citizens and permanent residents need help to leave that region.
In all the conflicts between Israel and Hamas over the years, there has been and still is one constant. Civilians always suffer from the violence. The war's toll on Gaza's children. Coming up next.
Plus, CNN looks into where Hamas militants trained for their incursion into Israel. The short answer is not too far from Israeli troops, and in plain sight as well.
Sickness can spread fast, but with Lysol, you can go into protect mode. For the things you touch. Nothing kills more viruses on more surfaces than Lysol disinfectant spray. And when it comes to your laundry, adding Lysol laundry sanitizer kills 99.9% of illness-causing bacteria detergents leave behind. Lysol, what it takes to protect.
Had enough? No, arthritis. Here, Aspercream arthritis. Huh. Full prescription strength. Reduces inflammation. Thank the gods. Don't thank them too soon.
Kick pain in the Aspercream. If you lived or worked at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina for at least 30 days from August 1953 through December 1987 and have been diagnosed with cancer, neurobehavioral effects, fertility issues, or more, you may qualify for financial compensation. A new law passed by Congress now allows veterans and survivors to seek damages for harm from exposure to contaminated water at Camp Lejeune. Call Saddle Rock Legal Group to discuss your case now.
Call 1-800-814-9977.
All of us have felt the effects of isolation during this pandemic, so we can understand a little how some veterans feel. But they will feel like that their entire lives, not just for a year. Over 30% of COVID survivors could experience PTSD, but many veterans have extreme cases of PTSD all their lives. Our most vulnerable veterans remain isolated at hospitals, scared and alone. But you can help. Help heal veterans with the support of citizens like you. Creates and distributes therapeutic art and craft projects for our veterans and military at no charge to them. Learn how you can help an isolated veteran through this desperate time. Visit healvets.org. This message is furnished by Help Heal Veterans, a not-for-profit organization that has been helping veterans for over 50 years. healvets.org.
Can we get real clear about life with psoriasis?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Is your treatment leaving you with uncontrolled symptoms? Like the cover-it-ups and brush-it-offs?
Enough with good enough.
Don't stay hiding or hurting. When your lotions and creams don't do enough to help treat the inflammation beneath the skin causing plaques and pain, it's time to get real about psoriasis so your dermatologist can help you get clear. Make the appointment and ask about Real Clear Skin.
There's two things a young man wants to be: cowboy or a gangster. And a gangster is out of style. I got back to my roots. We come from a long line of cowboys. My grandfather, my great-grandfather, my aunt even rode horses. When I see all of us out here on this ranch, I see how far our legacy can go.
He was only 47. Aneurysm. Did he have life insurance? Do you? No. You gotta get on it. Check out SelectQuote. Trust me, the peace of mind, it's worth it.
Come on, Dad. Life insurance is too important to put off another day. That's why SelectQuote makes getting coverage you need easy, for less than $1 a day. Now get up to a $2 million policy with no medical exam and same-day coverage.
Visit SelectQuote.com. We shop you save.
Welcome back. If you were watching before the break, you would have seen the interview we had with the Israel Defense Forces ahead of this deadline for people to get out of Gaza City. That was directed by the IDF. Elliot was looking at that interview because there has been some miscommunication over this. Of course, it's a war situation, so there will be that. But what did you clarify from the interview and learn from it?
I think there were three things. The first and perhaps most important is, as you said, as you asked Max, for Peter Lerner to clarify, is it the northern part of the Gaza Strip or is it just Gaza City, as one of his colleagues had said earlier on CNN, and it's now clear that it is Gaza City residents. So we're talking around about 600,000 people. That's almost a third of the entire population of the Gaza Strip that the IDF is telling to evacuate in order to get out of harm's way and so that they minimize the number of civilian casualties. Worth reiterating that Hamas has told residents of Gaza City to not pay any attention to these warnings or the warnings that they apparently are receiving on their mobile phones from the IDF to evacuate, to move out of harm's way. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, he said it may take longer. It may take longer than 24 hours. The clock started ticking at midnight local time. So we're talking 5 p.m. Eastern time is when the clock started ticking. So it's supposed to expire at midnight tonight in Israel. It seems that there will be a little bit of wiggle room there, that there will be some flexibility as far as the Israelis go in allowing the people of Gaza City to vacate. And I suppose the other thing is that he stressed, and this isn't something that was stressed earlier in the warning, is that there will be no ceasefire. So although they said, or his colleagues said earlier, that they will factor into consideration that there are going to be large numbers of people evacuating Gaza City to get out of harm's way. In other words, they're going to try and ensure that they're not targeted or not hit. At the same time, there will not be a ceasefire because, according to Peter Lerner, the spokesperson for the IDF, they don't want to give Hamas militants a chance to regroup, to carry out further attacks, whether it's rocket launchers towards Israel or to do any other, practice or any other attacks, or plan any other attacks that they might be wanting to do.
I mean, what a journey for anyone trying to leave.
And when we've been speaking to representatives from NGOs, all of them, of course, are calling for a ceasefire as a first priority in order to try and stabilise the situation there. And we did ask him as well about the level of collateral damage and civilian devastation and death that he would accept. He gave the same answer that we've been hearing all week, essentially. But now that the US and other partners are urging caution in Israel's retaliation to the Hamas attacks, would you expect to see any change of messaging, or more crucially, change in terms of them being more discriminating in their targets that they choose?
No, is the short answer. The gloves are off this time, Israel has repeatedly said. Israel is so shocked and angry, disgusted and heartbroken about everything that has happened since Saturday morning, and they have said repeatedly, whether it's from the Prime Minister, the Defence Minister or the spokespeople from the IDF, that there will be a price to pay. Their goal this time, in the past, is just to restore quiet. This time they are saying, and I don't know, and no one really knows if they're going to be able to achieve this, they are saying that their aim is simply to destroy Hamas and to ensure that it can never again even come close to wreaking the same kind of brutality and savagery and death on Israel that it did in that initial attack in the early hours of Saturday morning.
Elliot, thank you so much for joining us.
Relief groups calling for the protection of civilians in Gaza as the humanitarian crisis worsens by the hour. The Palestinian Ministry of Health says more than 1,500 people have been killed in Gaza since the airstrikes began. 500 of those killed are children.
A warning now, some of the images you're about to see in our next report are graphic and heartbreaking, including one of a baby girl who was rushed through the streets to a waiting ambulance by her uncle, but ultimately didn't make it. The stories and images are gut-wrenching, but important to hear and see. CNN's Nada Bashir has this report.
Gripped by grief and loss of unfathomable scale, Gaza's death toll and the number of civilians wounded is rising with each and every airstrike. In the El Shate refugee camp, men dig with their bare hands, desperate to rescue loved ones from beneath the rubble of what once were their homes. Saad begins to list the names of the children killed in this latest strike. Among them, his niece. She was just a few months old. Now, she is one of more than 440 children Gaza's health ministry says has been killed by Israeli airstrikes so far. Israel says it is striking Hamas targets, but authorities here say medical facilities, schools and residential areas have been impacted. Our neighbors said that the Israelis had called and told them to evacuate the area around our home, so we came to stay with relatives here in El Shate, Nabil says. But the next morning, when we woke up to pray at dawn, the airstrike happened. There was no warning. The densely populated Gaza Strip, which has been under an Israeli land, sea and air blockade since 2007, is home to more than 2 million people. Around 47% of them are children. So far, at least 340,000 people have been displaced within Gaza. Many are now forced to take shelter in UN-run schools like this one. But civilians here are also now facing what the Israeli government has described as a complete siege on Gaza. There's no water for us to drink, no water for us to wash ourselves with so that we can pray, Maram says. They've bombed our schools, many people have been killed. It's not fair for children like us. Why is this happening to us? Life under a blockade is all that the children of Gaza have ever known. For some, like 13-year-old Nadine, it is hard to imagine a future beyond this relentless conflict.
The last couple of nights have been the worst couple of nights I've ever lived in my life. This is not living. This is existing. We're not planning our futures anymore. We're just trying to survive.
But survival in Gaza is becoming more and more difficult by the day. The humanitarian situation is rapidly deteriorating. And while the UN has condemned what it has described as Israel's unlawful blockade on Gaza and the indiscriminate nature of Israel's airstrikes, there is little hope that the bloodshed will end here. Neda Bashir, CNN.
Let's go live now to Haifa, Israel, and Diana Buttu, a Palestinian political analyst and human rights lawyer. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Your reaction, first and foremost, to the impending humanitarian catastrophe. Well, indeed, it already exists, but it's only worsening by the hour.
It is indeed already a humanitarian disaster. Look, just to give you a sense of what Gaza is like, it is 40 kilometers long, 20 kilometers wide at its widest point. It's the most densely populated place on Earth. It's been besieged for decades by land, sea, and air. Nothing can get in without Israel. Nothing can get out without Israel's permission. And now they are bombing the Gaza Strip. This is a refugee population. It's effectively a large refugee camp with no place for people to go. And Israel has already projected and indicated that it plans to carry out mass atrocities, and indeed we've already seen them. Just in the past few days alone, Israel's dropped more bombs on Gaza than were dropped in an entire year by the United States in Afghanistan. If that isn't creating a humanitarian disaster, I don't know what is. But the worst part is that everybody is remaining silent and that the United States is in lockstep, complicit with these war crimes that are being perpetrated against a refugee child population.
And what are you hearing from Palestinians in Gaza today? Because it strikes me they're in an impossible situation. We were just speaking to the IDF. They're saying there won't be a ceasefire, but they do want people to evacuate Gaza City. A lot of people just, I mean, how are they going to get out? I mean, what are people saying? Are they going to stay and, see if they can survive, or are they going to go?
This is a talking point on the part of the Israelis. They ask them to evacuate, but evacuate to where? Israel has a responsibility, it has an obligation as the occupier, and it's not fulfilling that obligation. Instead, it's telling people to flee, but flee to where? There's no place for them to go. It has to provide them with that opportunity to leave, and people don't want to go. These are people who have survived the Nakba, the 1975 mass expulsion, ethnic cleansing of Palestine, and they're not about to go anywhere right now. But in terms of what people are feeling, I used to live in Gaza. I have many friends there. They're sending me messages telling me that this might be the last time that we message one another. They're telling me that they love me, and they're telling me to just keep telling the world about what is happening to them, because this is not only a humanitarian disaster, but these are massive war crimes. It's not the first time that Israel has done it. It keeps doing it over and over again, and it's the result of 56 years of military occupation, the denial of freedom. It's time for the world to step up and stop Israel rather than give it this blank check and allow it to continue to go ahead.
But Diana, we're so sorry for the situation that your friends are in, and clearly how heartbreaking this is for you as well. So based on what you just said, would you characterize the calls from the IDF for evacuation as rhetorical cover? You don't believe that's a sincere sort of hope that they're trying to effect to be able to evacuate people before they take this any further?
There is no way to evacuate 600,000 people within a short period of time, particularly given that they haven't given them the means to do so. Remember, they've cut off fuel, they've cut off electricity, they've cut off food supplies. The water is contaminated. It has been for many years. So no, this is just simply rhetoric designed to get people to somehow think that Israel's being humane. There are rules that Israel's supposed to be engaging in, and it's not. And Israel must be held to task and abide by those rules. This is why all of the humanitarian agencies have been calling for Israel to stop this bombing campaign. It's bombing a refugee camp.
What about the responsibility of Hamas here? Because we've got, on the one hand, we've got Israel saying evacuate. We've got countries like the UK government saying to their citizens, in Gaza to evacuate, to take Israel's advice. Hamas are saying stay put, ignore all that advice.
Actually, it's not just Hamas. Others are saying the same thing as well. Because the big question is how. How is it that the UK is going to be evacuating these people? Where are they supposed to go to? Just the first couple of days when people fled to go to Rafah, Israel bombed Rafah, the border crossing. So there's nowhere for people to go. There's no place for them to go. And instead, it's just going to lead to mass chaos in the streets of people trying to flee within a short window of time. They're effectively, it's like Israel is, as the saying goes, shooting fish in a barrel. That's what they've been doing. They've been carpet bombing parts of Gaza, mass bombing parts of Gaza, and all with the complicity and the support of the United States and other countries around the world. This is not a solution. And what I'm left with is, what does a win look like for Israel? What does Israel look like after all of this is done? What does Gaza look like after all of this is said and done? And nobody has an answer, because the sole intention is simply to wipe out Gaza. It's not Hamas, it's to wipe out Gaza. That's why we see that approximately half of the people who've been killed are children and women. And remember, this is in 5 days, Israel killed half of the number that it killed in the bombing attack that it carried out in 2014, which lasted 50 days. It just shows you the scale of the attack. There is no place for anybody to go.
Just one final point of clarification. When you just mentioned that it's not just Hamas that is suggesting that people in Gaza stay put because there simply aren't other options, who else are you referring to?
There are UN agencies who are saying that Israel must stop bombing, that the bombing campaign must stop. They are not telling people, leave your homes and flee. Instead, they're saying stay. This is from what I have heard from people so far. They're telling people stay. We've heard only that the UN has said that they are evacuating their staff to the southern part of Gaza, and they've said they've warned Israel that there are people who are sheltering in UN schools, and that these UN schools must not be attacked.
Well, that's a big thing you're saying there. The UN is advising people in Gaza City to stay, whilst other governments and the Israelis are saying. So, I mean, we need to sort of clarify exactly which agency is saying that, because we haven't had that from them.
UNRWA came out earlier this morning with a statement indicating that their UN staff are being evacuated to the south, but they've indicated that Israel should not be bombing UN schools.
That's not the question. The question is the UN telling Palestinians to stay in Gaza City when there's an evacuation order? I don't think they've said that, have they?
You're going to have to ask the UN. From what I read into that statement, when you see that people are sheltering in a school in place, and the Israelis are indicating that they're going to bomb, they're saying to them that people should not, that these schools must be protected, and these schools are serving as shelter for Palestinians.
Okay, we'll do that. Thank you so much, Diana Buto, for joining us. Now, with so many of you watching, feeling compelled to help with this humanitarian relief effort, CNN is compiling resources for you. Do go to cnn.com/impact.
There you'll find a list of vetted organisations responding on the ground, and as Max just said, that is cnn.com/impact there at the bottom of your screen. With Israel seemingly ready to escalate military operations, the US is looking to get thousands of stranded Americans out of the country. What we know about that plan just ahead.
As a cardiologist, I advise patients to maintain a healthy blood pressure. I recommend Qunol blood pressure support with the power of beets. Its unique 3-in-1 complex helps you maintain a healthy blood pressure. Qunol, the brand I trust.
Some things are big, others are huge. It's Empire Today's half-price sale. Get $2,400 of flooring for $1,200, $5,200 for an amazing $2,600. That's half the price of your entire purchase. Shop for carpet, hardwood, vinyl, and laminate right from home and have it professionally installed. Don't miss Empire's half-price sale. Schedule now.
800-588-2300 Empire.
Today, there are too many options.
Oh, how do we decide what hotel to book? Fear not, I got you. Who are you? I'm your fairy hotel mother.
What is happening?
Let me help you pick a hotel you feel good about. Choice Hotels is a family of brands with a hotel for every type of stay. Like a comfort with the kiddos. Ooh, spacious.
Or a Cambria hotel downtown for just the two of you. Hold my wand, don't wave it at anything. Stay twice and get a free night when you book direct at choicehotels.com.
Yeah.
What did I say?
Here we go. Another team, another selfie.
Wait. She recycled.
Well, that's not a selfie. That's a selflessy.
Oh, that's terrible, Stacy.
Something unexpected has arrived from Experian. A debit card. The all-new Experian Smart Money debit card and digital checking account. It finds payments that could raise your credit scores without adding debt. It's no ordinary debit card. It's the Smart Debit Card, only from Experian. And that is worth celebrating. Build credit without the debt. Get your new Experian Smart Money debit card and digital checking account through the Experian app.
Does someone who threatens Putin's power ever die unintentionally in Russia?
I don't think so. He just leaves all this carnage in his wake.
Do you think he cares about that?
No, he doesn't.
The Source with David Coleman. Tonight at 9.
Welcome back to CNN Newsroom. I'm Bianca Nobilo.
I'm Max Foster. In Israel's war against Hamas, the Israeli military is now telling all civilians in Gaza City to leave their homes immediately today and head south.
The IDF says Hamas terrorists are hiding in tunnels underneath houses, using people as human shields. It's the clearest sign yet that Israel's preparing to go after those who killed 1,300 people over the weekend and try to rescue hostages believed to be in Gaza.
America's top diplomat is in Jordan today for talks with King Abdullah and Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas, hoping to arrange a humanitarian corridor to Gaza.
And in a further show of solidarity with Israel, US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin arrived in Tel Aviv a short time ago, and he'll be meeting with both the Prime Minister and the Defense Minister.
The Biden administration says it's working very diligently with Israel and Egypt to get safe passage out of Gaza for American civilians.
It's also trying to get US citizens out of Israel and locate those still missing following Saturday's deadly attacks. Kayla Tausche has more.
The Biden administration now says 27 Americans have been killed in violence in the region, 14 remain unaccounted for, and there's still a handful of Americans being held hostage, though officials say their condition is not known. There are also thousands of Americans who just in recent days have registered their interest in being evacuated from Israel. That's why the State Department is now chartering flights beginning Friday to destinations across Europe, and that's a departure from its previous strategy, which was to direct travelers to commercially available options. But the White House remains adamant and says it's Israel's preference, too, that there be no American boots on the ground in the country. And the administration is also continuing to walk a very fine line when it describes Iran's sponsorship of Hamas. It is all part of the challenge that President Biden and his team are now facing. Present a show of force in the region, but also don't draw other rogue actors into the conflict. The president, also deeply affected by what he has seen there, is trying to channel and harness widespread outrage for the atrocities that Hamas has committed there. But President Biden raised some eyebrows this week when he described some images of babies that had been beheaded, which the White House later clarified he was referencing unconfirmed reports and comments from Israeli officials. But when asked about the importance of accuracy and the proliferation of misinformation among this war, John Kirby, a spokesman for the National Security Council, told reporters it's important to focus on the bigger picture.
It's obvious what Hamas has proven willing to do to innocent Israeli citizens. We're not gonna shy away from talking about the grotesque nature here of what these terrorists have done. But I also think it's important that we all, and I don't mean this in a chastising way, but we all have to keep the larger picture in mind here of what's going on and how important it is for Israel to be able to eliminate this very real, very tangible, very demonstrable threat to the lives of their own citizens.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu showing some of those images to U.S. Secretary of State Tony Blinken, with whom he met just this week, and Kirby telling reporters, telling everyone watching to steel yourselves for more gruesome images to come out of Israel. Kayla Tausche, CNN, the White House.
Well, some of the Hamas training for last week's deadly rampage was done in plain sight and not far from Israel's border with Gaza.
That's according to CNN's analysis of 2 years' worth of propaganda videos released by Hamas. They show Hamas used at least 6 training camps in Gaza, including 2 that were only a bit more than a mile, or about 2 kilometers from Israel's most heavily patrolled section of the border.
Some of the videos showed training on paragliders, which were used during the attack. The findings raised more questions about why Israel was caught flat-footed by Hamas. Sam is here. I mean, that debate is going to go on and on and on. Whenever we ask the IDF about it, it's, now is not the time for the intelligence failures. But I also know that you spent a huge amount of time in Gaza, one of the few correspondents to have done that. When you hear that the IDF is telling Gaza City to evacuate, just give us a sense of the lay of the land and how difficult that is.
You have to understand that at this point already, just in the last week, people have evacuated from the north, because if you remember, there was orders to evacuate from north of Gaza. So you already have people who have been displaced, I think more than 400,000. They've moved to Gaza City. Some of them are sitting in UN shelters. The UN says, this is an impossible order. You're giving us hours to evacuate potentially 1.1 million people with very little instruction.
Just Gaza City.
Just Gaza City, but again, just imagine being on the ground right now. You're hearing maybe it's 1.1 million, the whole of the north. The north was evacuated or asked to be evacuated days ago. Now you're hearing maybe it's just Gaza City. Families, what happens, just from my experience being there, is yes, some go into UN shelters, many go into homes with other families. So then you have 5 or 6 or 7 families all living, extended families in one building. Just imagine the depth of people there, really, just the density of people there.
Some of them will be elderly.
Some of them elderly, some of the, and remember, we have a complete siege here. So access to food, access to fuel, access to water. How does that get carried out? Now, the order is to move south. That is extremely vague. What is south? Where is that? Can the UN set up in a matter of hours to accommodate anywhere from 600,000 to 1.1 million people? If you're reading sort of between the lines, south, okay, south is Rafah crossing. Is there a hope that there's a deal with Egypt? How quickly could that happen? Is there a political will in Cairo for that to take place? It is extremely difficult for those families on the ground to ascertain where is safe. And you even heard stories in Nada Bashir's package, one family saying, we were told to evacuate, we left from that place, came to this place, only to be struck here.
You know these minds, when they're getting these messages and Hamas is saying stay put, what are they going to do?
I can't speak on behalf of 2 million Gazans, but I can speak on behalf of a family that is just trying to find a safe place. So I don't think Hamas saying stay put is necessarily going to keep people put. It might make people, because if you read the rest of Hamas's message, it says, don't fall for it. It's a trap. It's a conspiracy. And that's the misinformation that might misguide people. Because again, we hear stories from eyewitnesses every day now who say we did move and that place wasn't safe either. So of course there's a sense of mistrust. Of course there's a sense of, should we believe that this is the correct safe place to go to? And can there even be a safe place? And what does it mean to go south? Where is that? You are talking about a place that's being constantly bombarded. How do you move southwards safely? In what way? With what transportation? And to where?
Without a ceasefire. Salma, thank you very much.
Well, a week without a leader, and the top contender just said, forget it. The U.S. House will remain at a standstill until Republicans can agree on a new speaker. That is coming up next.
If you lived or worked at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina for at least 30 days from August 1953 through December 1987 and have been diagnosed with cancer, neurobehavioral effects, fertility issues, or more, you may qualify for financial compensation. A new law passed by Congress now allows veterans and survivors to seek damages for harm from exposure to contaminated water at Camp Lejeune. Call Saddle Rock Legal Group to discuss your case now.
Call 1-800-814-9977.
Yeah, military life can have its challenges, but sometimes veteran life brings more.
As America's veterans face challenges, DAV is there.
My name is Greg Gadsden, 26-year Army veteran.
With the right support, more veterans can reach victories, great and small.
DAV helps veterans like me get all the benefits they've earned, and that can be a life changer.
DAV provides a lifetime of support to veterans of every generation, helping more than 1 million veterans each year.
Today, I'm an entrepreneur, photographer, and public speaker.
With the right support, there are no limits.
And I never tire of standing tall.
But there's more to be done, and more victories to be won.
My victory is just being the best that I can be.
Greg Gadsden, thank you for your service. May your victories inspire many more. Support more victories for veterans. Go to DAV.org.
When it comes to making plans, you are the best. The same way you plan each detail for those moments, start planning to protect you and your loved ones from a natural disaster. Protecting your family is the best plan you can make.
Find some way to agree on a new leader. House Majority Leader Steve Scillies pulled out of the running for the top position late on Thursday after it became clear his fractured party would not come together to support him.
If you look at over the last few weeks, if you look at where our conference is, there's still work to be done. Our conference still has to come together and is not there. There are still some people that have their own agendas, and I was very clear. We have to have everybody put their agendas on the side and focus on what this country needs.
Friday will be the 9th day the U.S. House Republicans have operated without a leader since Kevin McCarthy became the first Speaker of the House in history to be ousted by his party.
Protesters take to the streets of Europe, voicing support for both Israel and the Palestinian people. Some of those scenes just ahead.
Republicans have to put their personal agendas on the side and do what the country needs. A song. By Paul Beckman, Polly Rainbow Song, also the new and first leader of humankind in the free world. Republicans have to put their personal agendas to the side and do what the country needs. Republicans have to put their personal agendas to the side and do what the country needs. That's what Steve was saying. It's true, and this applies to you. Republicans have to put their personal agendas to the side and do what the country needs. Republicans have to put their personal agendas aside and do what the country needs. It's true. Steve was just indicating it's true. He was set to become Speaker of the House. Oh yeah, he would have but some. Republicans still have personal agendas. They gotta put them to the side. How come? Because they must do what the country needs. Republicans have personal agendas, now be heard. You gotta put those aside and do what the country needs. He lost his attempt to gain the Speaker of the House, well, he needs to. So do the Republicans. They have to elect somebody, and they only have so many choices. Well, he was the one, he was the best of the best. Well, how come he didn't get it? Personal agendas. Those Republicans with personal agendas who are not doing what the country needs are holding up the works, and they're gonna stand out. They're gonna be seen. They're gonna be seen as mean. They're unwilling to let the country have what it needs to get on with business in these extreme times of change and turbulence. They're going to let the world see the USA as being nothing but weak. They're the ones holding up the works. They're standing out as quirks. You gotta put your personal agendas aside and do what this country needs, and do what this country needs. You gotta do it, boys. You gotta do it, Republicans. Otherwise, you'll be seen as a laughingstock throughout the world. For an explanation of my mainstream name, Paul Beckman, New Age name, Palu Rainbow Song, and even when I utter also by the new and first leader of humankind in the free world, please go to Internet Solutions and Songs 24-7 at Palu Rainbow Song bio on YouTube. From there, look for the playlist Movie Song Reviews by Palu. And once there, look for some videos and song videos entitled A Special Note. That'll give you a full explanation of all that plus more. Thank you very much. Namaste. I honor the divine in all. Jah love.